So this dude blinks his eyes open with zero clue where he is right before his classmate jabs him awake. The teacher totally spots him snoozing in class, and the whole room just erupts. Of course, the class clown is caught napping. Again, the teacher stomps over, asking if her lecture is really that much of a snooze fest. But our boy, Blair, he can't believe his eyes. Who is this woman? Boring? Please. These curves are anything but. I mean, just look at that perfect geometry. We're talking flawless spheres here. The teacher, however, was not a fan of that look. She yanks him up by the ear, points to the blackboard, and basically forces him to solve the problem. But the kid's mind is still buffering, thanks to that very distracting geometry. He's got to pull out his special technique to chill out and get the blood flow from, down south back up to his brain. Finally, Blair actually sees the problem. Sum all the numbers from 1 to 100. Professor Brittany is yelling at him to get a move on, figuring if he's sleeping, he must be a secret genius. Cue more laughing. See, Blair was known for being about as sharp as a marble, but once he's focused, Blair's entire vibe shifts. He gets so cocky it actually leaves the teacher stunned. When he scrawls the answer on the board, the professor's jaw hits the floor. But Blair doesn't even gloat. He just casually says he needs to hit the bathroom to, quote, take care of something. The class is dead silent. Is it possible that answer is actually right? Meanwhile, the teacher with the A+ curves is completely floored. How in the world did he crunch those numbers in his head? But outside, we get the plot twist. Blair has no idea what is going on. Because this body? It ain't his. His real name is Chenlu, a world-freaking famous math professor, a prodigy who became the youngest master ever. He has no memory of how he kicked the bucket, let alone how he got downloaded into the body of this C- student. On top of that, it looks like these people don't even use basic math. Is he even in his own dimension? If not, he might just be the smartest man on the entire planet right now. Dead set on becoming this world's new Einstein, our guy is so in his head he doesn't see a girl barreling down the hallway. The two of them collide, bam, like a freaking train wreck. Blair's head is pounding, but he feels something, incredibly soft in his hand that honestly makes the whole thing worth it. He yanks his hand back when he realizes what's up and tries to help the girl up. She is pissed. Blair, you? Again? Our boy, totally lost, just asks, do I know you? The girl goes beet red, trying to cover her assets, while screaming, you did the exact same thing on the first day of school, always copping a feel and trying to peek up my skirt. You're just as much of a creep as ever. She unloads so many insults about this Blair guy that our protagonist is literally freezing up from secondhand cringe. He tries to explain, but this girl is dead set on giving him a memory wipe the hard way. She starts summoning freaking fire magic. Blair quickly pivots. Hey, if I'm really that much of a loser, wouldn't beating me up just be, like, super lame of you? But the girl is not listening. She's ready to barbecue his brain cells. Out of options, Blair goes for broke, pure, unadulterated sincerity. He apologizes to the beautiful lady with the spectacular geometry. And I swear, I did not see the color of any undergarments. This completely throws her off. She actually starts to cool down. But before she can get a word out, the so-called culprit has already vanished, booking it away from the blonde as fast as his new legs will carry him. As he's running, he's processing the sheer insanity of a world with both science and magic. Suddenly, a killer headache slams into him, and he drops to his knees on the grass. His vision starts to tunnel. His body goes totally limp, and he passes out cold. Our hero's mind then flashes back to his childhood, where we see him calling out for his dad. The scene melts into a puddle's reflection, showing a group of people in front of some huge palace. A man hands a gorgeous box to a woman, telling her his love and trying to calm her down. A second later, the woman grabs a kid's arm and hustles inside a massive 2-story house. Inside, while she's unpacking, she overhears 2 maids spilling the tea. They're saying the lady and her kid were nobles, but the guy footing the bills had just died. She's super concerned, asking if he's okay, and Blair's just sitting there, like, who are you and how did you even find me here? His mother, looking terrified, warns him about all the crap he's about to face at that school. Looking at her son, she's hit with a wave of déjà vu, realizing how much he looks just like her late husband. After that, the memories cut to a montage of his academy life, where our protagonist was getting absolutely roasted by his professors 24/7. So, his new mission, should he choose to accept it, is to clear his family's massive debt. See, he's from a noble family that went completely broke, which means he's got to hustle twice as hard. The only catch? This dude was born with 0 magical talent. We're talking can't even light a candle with his mind level of useless. And because of that, his academy life was a straight-up nightmare. Everyone and their mother clowned on him for his failures, which basically sent our boy into a major depression spiral. Then, bam, he wakes up to find a blue-haired girl all up in his personal space. She's super concerned, asking if he's okay, and Blair's just sitting there like, who are you and how did you even find me here? The girl offers him a hand up, reminding him he's late for magic theory class. Our guy stumbles to his feet, using her for support, and mumbles a surprised thanks. Seriously, no one has ever given him the time of day before. By the time they slide into the classroom, the lecture on the 4 basic elements is already in full swing. Everyone and their mother clowned on him for his failures, which basically sent our boy into a major depression spiral. Then bam, he wakes up to find a blue-haired girl all up in his personal space. How in the world did he crunch those numbers in his head? But outside, we get the plot twist. Blair has no idea what is going on, because this body, it ain't his, and spiritual mojo to bend the elements to their will. But, plot twist, you gotta be born with the cheat codes to do any of it. The clock finally runs out, and class is dismissed. The students bolt out of there, hyped that the lecture is over. But after the chaos dies down, the professor spots someone lingering, clearly wanting to ask a question. The students bolt out of there, hyped that the lecture is over. But after the chaos dies down, the professor spots someone lingering, clearly wanting to ask a question. The professor just flat out shuts him down, saying it's absolutely impossible to control the elements without that natural-born gift. And right on cue, the few classmates left in the room just erupt in laughter, since everyone knows our guy has the magical potential of a rock. That's when a dude named Toby rolls up to play the supportive friend. He tells Blair that even if he flunks out, he's always got a spot working on his dad's farmlands. The name clicks, and our protagonist remembers this chubby dude was literally the only friend the original owner of this body ever had. After their little heart-to-heart, Toby flashes him a big old grin and they wave a friendly goodbye. Then, out of the corner of his eye, Blair catches the blue-haired girl staring at him. He's like, can I help you with something? She immediately gets beat red and bolts from the room, but not before squeaking out that Professor Brittany wants to see him in her office. He starts thinking about that girl, who's been orbiting him all day like a nervous satellite. It was obvious she wanted to say something. Then it hits him. Being a math whiz is totally useless in a magic world if he can't even cast a single spell. But with a tiny flicker of hope, he decides to try and summon a flame one more time. He stares down at his own hand, focuses all his brain power, and tries to pull off the fireball spell, just praying for a miracle. His hope was already circling the drain, and despair was kicking in, because it looked like another epic fail. But then, completely out of nowhere, his hand just erupts in a blazing orange flame. The guy is absolutely floored, just mesmerized by the fireball dancing in his palm. He has no clue what's happening, just staring at that glowing yellow light. He can't even process it. As far as he knew, this body was a magical dead end, but you can't really argue with the evidence floating in your hand. He finally accepts his new reality with a massive sigh of relief. And what's the first thing he does? He starts messing around with his new fiery toy, before stopping to wonder how this power-up even happened. He chalks it up to some weird multiverse crossover shenanigans. Then, his brain finally reboots, and he remembers he's got a meeting with a teacher. He heads over to her office, gives the door a knock, and a voice from inside tells him to enter. He apologizes for interrupting, and our boy steps into the math teacher's office, only for his eyes to pop out of his head as his face goes supernova red. He's met with the sight of his ridiculously hot teacher in a his unconventional pose. He just freezes, gawking, but she doesn't seem to notice his meltdown and just greets him with a cheerful hello. Our protagonist is still locked in a state of shock, just staring. The teacher, completely unfazed, tells him not to mind her. This is just how she does her best calculations. Blair, still trying to get his brain back online, asks why she wanted to see him. The blonde then gestures for him to take a seat in the chair by her desk, scooting back a little. He slides back in, dropping a pen and paper in front of him. Our boy glances down to find, you guessed it, another math problem staring him in the face. Just as she's like, I'll be right back, he doesn't even flinch and just casually drops the correct answer like it's nothing. The teacher's brain short-circuits. What did you just say? He repeats the number, deadpan, confirming he nailed it. And that's when things get interesting. The blonde bombshell practically teleports to his side, grabbing his shoulder like, how? Clearly freaking out because that problem should have taken her like an eternity. Now she's getting heated, accusing him of already knowing the problem, even though she swears she picked the number 79 completely at random. Our hero just smirks. You sure you want to know? She's practically begging now, half joking, but totally serious. His eyes, accidentally take a detour south for a second, and he sheepishly agrees to spill the beans. He's thinking to himself, wow, for a teacher, she's kind of clueless. But hey, no time to waste, he dives straight into the masterclass. He points out her method of just adding every single number one by one. He's like, that's playing on hard mode, way too easy to mess up. But then he throws her a bone. Props to you, though. You actually got it right. She's just staring at her notes, completely baffled. Like, that's the only way I know. Our boy flashes a killer grin. Oh, you sweet summer child. There's a better way. It's all about finding the pattern. His big brain strategy, pair the first number with the last, the second with the next to last, and you just keep that train rolling. He explains that each of these pairs magically adds up to 80. So, he quizzes her. How many pairs of 80 we got? And bam. She literally leaps out of her seat screaming 39. Our guy instantly goes into teacher mode. Excellent. Now sit down. Before catching himself like, whoops, sorry, force of habit. He keeps going, explaining how this trick transforms a monster addition problem into a baby multiplication one. He shows her how this shortcut makes solving it insanely fast. The teacher is totally geeking out, blown away by this new trick, calling it a wonderful way to solve the problem. But wait, there's more. She even figures out on her own that the system could probably be optimized even further. He gives her a nod of approval, confirming that yep, there's a pro-level version of this hack. But after he drops that next-level knowledge bomb, she just blue screens. Her brain is buffering, trying to process the sheer genius of it all. Seeing her totally catatonic, our hero calls her name, starting to worry that his world's kindergarten math is basically rocket science here. She finally reboots, looking away, totally humbled, asking if he came up with that method himself. Our guy plays it cool, dodging the question by saying he just came up with it to make life easier. Meanwhile, he's thinking, yeah, right, like she'd know who Gauss is. Then out of nowhere, she grabs his hand, calling him a straight-up genius. And for our protagonist, this is suddenly feeling like the start of a rom-com. She's talking about their bright future studying together, and my man is blushing so hard he's about to spontaneously combust. He tries to get a word out, but she finally reads the room, gets super flustered, and yeets herself to the other side of the office. But then, a plot twist. You can see the light bulb go off over her head. Her face completely changes, and she's all hyped up. Blair, you should become a world-class mathematician. His response? A hard, immediate nope. He gets this fire in his eyes and declares he's going to be a legendary mage. She just gives him the most confused look ever and asks, but why? So, naturally, she slams him onto the table, insisting he needs to study math and stop wasting his insane talent. She's screaming that as a mathematician, he could have serious clout in society and that's the path he should take, not some hocus pocus. He's not having it though and shoves her hand right off him. Our guy fires back that magic is his passion. He wants to be a mage, period. In his mind, being a top-tier mathematician in this world is a total cakewalk. All you'd have to do is drop a few math theories that already exist back home, and to him, that feels like straight-up plagiarism. Plus, magic is just way cooler. After a beat, the teacher's eyes narrow. All right, she says, let's make a bet. She tells Blair about the big magic exam coming up at the academy, which, apparently, is the one thing that decides if he gets to stay or gets the boot. Our boy processes this, realizing that if he bombs this test, he's getting kicked to the curb. The teacher's like, look, you want to play wizard? You gotta pass this test. End of story. The room goes dead quiet, and Blair just hits her with his blank, unreadable stare, his brain probably running a million calculations a second. Then, the teacher snags a calendar, breaking down the terms of their little wager. She says if Blair actually aces the exam, she'll officially get off his back about becoming a mathematician. But if he totally bombs it, she's gonna hook him up with a cushy T, a position so he can stay at the academy and be a numbers nerd forever. After laying it all out, she asks if he's in. In her head, though, she's cackling, thinking there's zero chance this kid with the magical aptitude of a brick is gonna pass. But Blair, cool as a cucumber and with a look of pure, unadulterated confidence, accepts the challenge. Out in the hall, our boy's fuming about how extra his teacher is, always breathing down his neck. His mind immediately starts replaying the scene, only his version is the spicy, fan fiction director's cut. Shaking himself out of those, let's call them creative thoughts, he decides to blow off some steam with magic practice. But then, bam. Out of nowhere, a girl decked out in ribbons is hurtling toward him at Mach 5. They collide in a glorious, cartoon-level bonk. In the next moment, they're both tumbling to the floor. Our guy gets a flash of déjà vu, and then registers a weird feeling in his hand. When the stars clear from his vision, he finds a girl sprawled on top of him. The blonde then realizes exactly where his hand landed and immediately starts delivering a 5-knuckle sandwich to his face. Absolutely furious, she decides fists aren't enough and starts winding up a fire spell. And just like that, a blazing orange fireball materializes in her palm. Only problem, her target has vanished into thin air. The girl is absolutely raging, cursing him for pulling another Houdini act. Miles away, our protagonist is gasping for air, thinking if he hadn't channeled his inner Flash, he'd be a pile of well-done steak right now. A little while later, this very same ribbon girl marches into the math teacher's office, complaining that she ran into the same creepy dude twice in one day. After venting, she gets even more heated, swearing that the next time she sees that guy, she's skipping the talking and going straight to Human Torch mode. The teacher finds this whole drama hilarious and lets out a little snicker. The girl, whose name we learn is Isabella, quickly changes the topic. She proudly announces she solved that mega-hard math problem, flexing that she pulled an all-nighter to crack it, totally convinced she's the fastest mind in the school. The teacher gives her props for the effort, but then completely demolishes her ego by saying some guy named Blair solved it in 60 seconds flat. Isabella's jaw hits the floor. She's totally bugging out, demanding to know how in the world he did it that fast. The teacher explains there's a sort of cheat code, a specific math theory, and offers to show her. She then breaks down the galaxy brain method Blair used. After the lesson, Isabella's just standing there, with that little loading icon spinning over her head as she tries to process this new info. But bit by bit, it all starts to click. The logic falls into place. And then, the final, mind-blowing realization hits her. Blair didn't just use the theory, he freaking invented it. In that instant, Isabella's new life mission becomes meeting the genius behind the math. She turns to the teacher, desperate for answers, her eyes literally sparkling with hero worship. The teacher is a little weirded out by this sudden 180 but agrees to set up an introduction. Not even 5 minutes later, Isabella goes full-on SWAT team, kicking a classroom door open and screaming, "Where is Blair?" She makes it abundantly clear this is not a request. One of Blair's buddies, looking like a deer in headlights, is about to snitch. But just as he opens his mouth, he feels a sharp, unmistakable pinch on his thigh that wordlessly screams, "Shut up." The pincher? None other than Blair himself, hiding under the desk like a ninja. The friend gets the memo loud and clear and immediately starts spinning a yarn for Isabella, telling her Blair just left for his part-time job. She gives him a look that says, "Seriously?" and hits him with a sarcastic question. Realizing she's hit a wall, she gives up and just tells the guys to have Blair find her later. His friend gives her a super relieved wave, promising to pass the message along. The second Isabella is gone, the classroom door slams shut. Only when the coast is clear does our boy Blair emerge from his under-the-table bunker. And boom, the room goes dead silent. We're talking crickets chirping, pin-dropping awkward. Every single eye in the room is lasered onto Blair, all of them rocking the same "what the fuck was that" expression. Suddenly, he's the star of a show he never auditioned for. Blair turns to his buddy like, "Dude, why is everyone staring at me?" His friend, sporting a fresh battle bandage, just grips his shoulder with the intensity of 1,000 suns. The guy's face is pure desperation as he begs, "Spill it, man. What did you do to Isabella?" But Blair's just standing there, buffering, completely clueless. Blair's confusion is so obvious his friend hits him with a look that screams, "Are you out of your mind?" and basically asks if he's been living under a rock and has zero clue who that girl is. Okay, now our hero's getting a little spooked. He cautiously asks, "All right, for real? Who was that?" His friend starts laying it out. She's got connections, the kind that can make your life a living nightmare. But Blair, full of that main character confidence, just shrugs it off. "We're in the academy. I'm untouchable here." His friend, already picturing Blair's funeral, asks for the academy's name. Blair gives the answer, cool as a cucumber. Next up, "And where's the campus located?" Our dude, still blissfully ignorant, says it's on Baker Avenue. And then the nuke drops. His friend informs him that their campus is smack in the middle of a city called Yabo, and the mayor of Yabo just so happens to be, drumroll, Isabella's dad. The hamster wheel in Blair's brain finally starts spinning. He realizes he's not just in hot water, he's boiling in it. He's spiraling, totally panicking, and asks his friend if maybe, just maybe, a simple "my bad" will fix this. But before he can even workshop an apology, someone yells Isabella's name from across the room. They both whip their heads around to see some blonde dude and his posse of goons giving Blair the death stare. The guy sneers that a scrub like Blair won't last 2 days here. And who is this charming individual? Meet Bod, the academy's resident jerk and Blair's personal, longtime bully. Blair's buddy jumps to his defense, but on the inside, he's thinking, yeah, no, Bod's got a point. Because in this academy, if you ain't got the juice, you're nothing. You get absolutely zero respect. And to pour salt in the wound, all second years have a mandatory exam. Fail, and you're kicked to the curb. Expelled. Bye-bye. On paper, this magic exam is a cakewalk. A toddler could pass it, but there's a teeny, tiny little problem. Blair has exactly zero magical talent. Nada. Zilch. So for our guy, this exam is basically a one-way ticket to failure. His doom scrolling is interrupted by a loud bang on a table. It's Bod, face red, screaming at him. He's yelling something like, "Are you deef?" The whole vibe in the room just gets super tense as Bod starts dropping some not-so-family-friendly words. But Blair's friend isn't having it. His face goes from chill to stone cold as he squares up to Bod, basically challenging the arrogant punk to throw down right then and there for being a world-class jerk. But Bod's just confused. Like, what's this got to do with you, Toby? Oh yeah, the friend's name is Toby. And just like that, the tension in the room cranks up to 11. These two are about to go at it. Bod, looking absolutely livid, promises he's not going to forget this little chat. He storms off with his crew in tow, shouting over his shoulder that next time, Blair's going to get what's coming to him. Our hero just stands there, looking a little green around the gills as they peace out. He's genuinely shocked that his boy Toby went to bat for him like that. That's a real one, for sure. Blair then asks Toby to have his back if things with Isabella go sideways. Toby's like, "Yeah, I got you," but adds that by then, he'll have already delivered his own beatdown to Blair first. After that, Blair's just staring at his friend with a giant question mark over his head, utterly bewildered. Fast forward a few days, and it's time for the dreaded magic exam. The professor lays down the law, fail, and your history. The mission, should they choose to accept it, stand behind the line, yeet a fireball, hit the target. Simple, right? And kicking things off is, you guessed it, Bod. He struts up with enough swagger to power a small city, basically announcing he's the top dog. He effortlessly conjures a fireball and bullseyes the target. Show off. The professor gives him a gold star and a passing grade. The exam continues, one student after another. Then, somewhere in the anxious crowd, our favorite blonde bully locks eyes with Blair and Toby and lets out this ridiculously smug laugh. He strolls over and tells Blair to enjoy his last few moments as a student. Toby, having none of it, tells the jerk to zip it. And what do you know? The very next name called up to the plate is Toby himself. Talk about timing. Zero hesitation, my man starts winding up the fireball spell. A tiny little orange flame pops into his hand, like a magic trick gone, right? He screams the move's name like he's in an anime and just lets it rip. The fireball wobbles through the air and just kisses the edge of the target. The instructor, looking about as thrilled as someone at the DMV, just deadpans. Yeah, whatever, you passed. And even though he barely squeaked by, my dude is absolutely losing his mind with joy. Meanwhile, the instructor checks his clipboard for the next victim. I mean, student. He's about to call out Blair's name, but then it clicks. Oh yeah, the kid with zero magic juice. The instructor, feeling a pang of secondhand embarrassment, decides to do our boy a solid and just skip him to avoid a public roasting. So he starts announcing, all right, that's a wrap, folks, totally pretending he forgot Blair existed. But of course, Captain Blonde and Douchey chimes in, yelling for the instructor to hold his horses. He points out that they missed someone. Then, this jerk points a finger straight at our protagonist and bellows for the whole world to hear that he's basically already failed before he even started. Blair just stands there, a statue in a storm of cringe, waiting to see if the instructor will throw him under the bus. The instructor, looking super uncomfortable, kinda mumbles. So, you, gonna take the test? The bully's posse of goons hears this and absolutely erupts, howling like a pack of hyenas. The crowd starts whispering, you know the vibe, and just then, some random math teacher wanders by, probably wondering what all the drama's about. Blair's buddy gives him a supportive shoulder pat, like, dude, just tune out the haters. But then, something flips. Our boy's whole aura just changes. He gets this look of pure, unadulterated confidence and decides, you know what, game on. The blonde bully and his crew are just gobsmacked by this, their brains buffering, trying to process what's happening. But that confusion lasts for about 2 seconds before they all start cackling again, absolutely roasting our guy and already planning his epic fail party. All this racket gets the math teacher's attention, who decides to mosey on over for a front row seat to the chaos. The magic instructor, now officially done with this circus, barks at everyone to shut their traps. He gives Blair one last out, like, you absolutely sure about this, kid? But our boy, with a look that could cut steel, tells Professor Antonio he was born ready. The instructors, still trying to be nice, basically tell him, hey, no shame in bombing this, okay? The protagonist steps up to the plate, gets in his stance, and just centers himself. Takes a deep, cleansing breath and thinks, all right, how can I make this as theatrical as possible for these clowns? He's so confident it's almost arrogant, knowing full well he doesn't need any of the fancy chants or hand-waving. But just for the sheer drama of it all, he decides to play along. He screams the name of the fire spell, and every single head snaps towards the target, a collective held breath. Our main character puts on an Oscar-worthy performance, grunting and straining like he's trying to lift a car. The crowd's even shielding their faces from the imaginary heat, totally buying the act. Then, when the dust settles and everyone peeks, they look at Blair's hands and see absolutely nothing. Not a spark, not a flicker, nada. The blonde brigade sees this and just loses it, pointing and laughing, convinced our boy choked. But then plot twist, a tiny flame ignites in his palm and suddenly, rings of fire erupt around him. A fireball the size of a small car materializes and rockets towards the target. The second that thing makes contact, kaboom! A massive fiery explosion rocks the entire field. Every single person, from the students to the faculty, is just frozen, jaws scraping the dirt. And once the smoke clears, the target is just gone, replaced by a heap of smoking, melted rock. The magic professor, looking like he's seen a ghost, just stammers out that Blair, definitely passed. The bully's face goes from smug to utterly shattered, and he just sputters that it's impossible even he can't pull off a move like that. Only Toby is genuinely hyped for his boy, asking him where the heck he was hiding that cheat code. Just then, the professor calls our MC over for a little chat, and you can still see the math teacher on the sidelines, just completely shook, muttering to himself about how a kid just broke the laws of physics. So Blair heads to the professor's office and starts weaving this epic story about how he just, hit the books really, really hard every day. And that's how he supposedly became a grandmaster of the fireball spell. Simple as that. So Professor Anthony lays out the lore. Magic is a gift from the gods, and anyone without it is basically godforsaken. He admits they all thought Blair was in that club, but now it looks like the gods just dropped him a surprise loot box, which, never happens. He starts gassing our boy up, giving him the whole you have massive potential speech and telling him to keep hitting those magical textbooks. And our guy is just thinking, oh great, another one. Seriously, is every teacher in this entire academy obsessed with making him actually learn stuff? And just as he's having this thought, completely out of left field, he's like, hey, thanks for the props, prof, but I gotta bounce back to my own dimension. The professor just stares, completely baffled, asking, worlds? Plural? What on earth are you talking about? Our boy immediately realizes he just spilled the interdimensional beans and tries to play it cool, laughing it off like, haha, just kidding. Total brain fart, my bad. But Anthony's internal BS detector is screaming. He just writes it off as Blair being completely book-fried, confusing the real world with some epic fan fiction about the Sacred Master. The second he hears Sacred Master, Blair's ears perk up like he just heard the ice cream truck. Suddenly, he's hanging on the professor's every word. According to the legend, there was this god-tier master who could literally bend space and hop between worlds. Of course, everyone now thinks it's just a bedtime story. But our MC is giving the professor those big puppy dog eyes, begging for more deets. He suddenly grabs the old guy by the shoulders and declares, "I need to become a sacred master." Cut to a montage of Blair going full-blown hermit mode, diving headfirst into this world's history. We're talking all-nighters in the library, fueled by pure desperation and probably way too much caffeine, as he tears through a mountain of ancient texts. From his cram session, he discovers mages here are tiered like a video game. In total, there are 7 distinct power levels to climb, but these sacred masters, they're basically myth level, like Bigfoot or a politician who keeps their promises. Their insane abilities are only whispered about in the oldest, dustiest scrolls. A ton of old books claim these masters had space magic, capable of ripping open reality to travel between worlds. But modern folks just dismiss it as ancient fan fiction, convinced other worlds don't exist. But our hero is clinging to this sliver of hope like it's his last slice of pizza. The big problem? Professor Anthony thinks the whole thing is a load of baloney. So yeah, getting more info out of him is a total dead end. Right on cue, the library administrator shuffles over to Blair and asks how his studying is going. Blair gets all antsy as the librarian basically tells him to stop being a book-hoarding goblin and actually help out. With zero other options, our boy agrees to take a break from his quest. After his shift, he's completely wrecked. Who knew being a librarian was such a hardcore workout? And just as he's about to collapse, the bell rings for class. The second our protagonist walks into the classroom, the place goes dead silent. The air is thick with whispers about his unbelievable test scores, since, he crushed it. The gossip just won't quit, and this sudden spotlight is seriously starting to weigh on the guy. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he spots Isabella and just freezes solid. His brain short-circuits, wondering what in the fresh heck she's doing there, as he just stares, forgetting how to breathe. The blonde is sitting in a, let's call it, an interesting pose, which sends our boy into a full-on flusterfest. He literally has to wrench his head away to avoid a system crash. Without warning, Isabella shoots up from her chair and screams for the entire class to hear, "I had no idea that guy was the same Blair." Seeing this train wreck about to happen, our hero tries to de-escalate, but she cuts him off and just screeches, "Pervert," in front of God and everybody. Blair is still frantically trying to calm her down, but then he sees actual fire start to form around her. She's winding up a fireball in her hands, ready to let it rip. With absolutely no game plan, the terrified kid just cringes and covers his face, bracing for impact, but he feels absolutely nothing. Baffled, he peeks through his fingers to see what gives. Standing right in front of him is the math teacher, who just blocked the fiery attack like a total badass. The teacher, rocking the ultimate "I'm so disappointed in you" face, asks Isabella why she's trying to barbecue a classmate. The mayor's daughter tries to explain, but the teacher shuts her down before she even starts. Immediately after, the teacher's like, "Blair, my office. Now." And she's not done. "Isabella, you're coming too." Wanting zero more drama, our boy just complies and quietly heads for the teacher's office. The trio makes a swift exit, slamming the door behind them for that extra dramatic flair. After that wild scene, the entire class is left in a state of shock, just trying to process what the hell just happened. Some blonde dude in the back looks particularly confused. He's totally mystified as to why Blair is suddenly the main character of this high school anime. Meanwhile, in the teacher's office, our boy is awkwardly explaining the whole string of cringe-worthy encounters with Isabella. The teacher plays mediator, insisting it's all just one giant, hilarious misunderstanding. After a heavy dose of teacher guilt tripping, the blonde finally agrees to forgive him. With that drama finally put to bed, the teacher masterfully changes the subject, bringing up the magic exam and heaping praise on our protagonist for his incredible effort, calling their little bet officially dead. She's completely intrigued by his performance and demands to know how he managed to pull a magical glow-up out of thin air. But our boy plays it cool, brushing it off as a lucky shot and flipping the script, saying he's actually the one with some questions for her about this whole magic thing. The teacher doesn't push it, just waits, curious to see what he's cooking up. Then he drops the million-dollar question. To sling elements, do you really have to do all the fancy hand-waving and spell casting? And right on cue, Isabella, who apparently lives for this drama, butts in just to roast the protagonist, calling his question absolutely idiotic. Realizing he might have just sounded like a total magic noob, Blair awkwardly backpedals, asking if there are any, exceptions among the pros. The teacher starts explaining that even the Gandalfs of their world need spells and gestures. The only real difference is that the top-tier mages can do it all at lightning speed. Then she drops some lore, saying magic is a literal gift from the gods. They were the ones who wrote the user manual, teaching mortals how to use gestures and spells. To do it freestyle, you'd need a cheat code they call Divine Enlightenment. Isabella finds the question so ridiculous that she straight up asks the teacher why she's even entertaining this level of nonsense. This gets our protagonist wondering if, because he's an Isekai hero, the local gods just left him off the mailing list. This was all Magic 101, and he realized he'd have to actually hit the books to become a real mage. But the teacher had called him over for the real reason, the one she'd brought up before. She hands him a folded paper, explaining it's a high-tier scientific journal where all the big-brain discoveries get published. Isabella, being nosy, sneaks a peek and her jaw hits the floor. She spots the math teacher's name right next to our boys and has a full-on, dramatic anime meltdown. The teacher explains that she reverse-engineered the summation method he demonstrated and published a whole paper on it, But our black-haired hero can only think about one thing. Is he going to get paid for this? Because that library salary was an absolute joke. And as if she's reading his mind, the teacher suddenly calls out his name. She hands him a small pouch of money, saying it's his cut for the work. This was a fat stack of cash, more than 2 years of the pathetic salary he was pulling at the library. Trying to hide his massive grin, he pulls the classic, "Oh, I couldn't possibly accept this move," and offers half the money back to the teacher. Big mistake. She immediately calls his bluff and takes half the cash for herself. The color drains from Blair's face. He never, ever expected her to actually take him up on the offer. The pain is immense. He was just trying to be polite. With one single sentence, he fumbled half the bag. Because of this massive L, he started having some pretty dark thoughts, like maybe it was time to find the nearest exit portal out of this world. But then, something catches his complete and undivided attention. He stares at the teacher with a brand new, greedy glint in his eye. He has to know if every single article published in that journal comes with a fat paycheck. In response, he gets a glorious, yes, a payday for every single published article. And just like that, a brilliant, money-making idea sparks in his brain, and he just has to share it. He immediately launches into a new theory, one he snagged from his old world. The teacher instantly recognizes what he's talking about, calling it Hughes's enigma. Our boy, who's completely out of the loop on this world's scientific lore, just gives her a confused stare. She explains that Ralph's riddle is a legendary math problem created by ancient sages. The setup is a classic. Ralph has 7 sons. Each son has 7 bags. Each bag holds 7 cats, and each cat has 7 little kittens. The problem itself isn't impossible. You could just brute force the math to get the answer. But the real challenge is, what happens if the numbers get way, way bigger? You need a much more elegant solution. So the teacher, now totally hooked, asks if he can solve Ralph's riddle using a different, better method. With a confident smirk, he replies that he might have a few tricks up his sleeve. His answer gets her so hyped that she asks to team up with him. Hours fly by as they dive into the work. Meanwhile, the student who's been stuck in the office this whole time eventually passes out from sheer boredom. Suddenly, she's jerked awake by a scream right in her ear. The one screaming is the professor. She's literally jumping for joy, shouting that our boy finally cracked the code. Isabella, completely stunned, asks the protagonist if he seriously came up with that all on his own. He, in turn, hits her with a sly look and asks if she really wants to know the answer. And you can bet the blonde is dying to know, so she's practically grilling him for his secret sauce, and he just deadpans. "No secret skills, I just study like my life depends on it." The girl is, unsurprisingly, shook. She's all, "Are you being for real right now?" And later, she's still totally hung up on it when, completely out of the blue, something wild happens right in front of her eyes. It leaves her completely stunned. Then she spots our main character lurking around the third-year building and is like, "Hold up, what's a sophomore doing over here?" She swears this is the time she's going to catch him in the act, but before she can even blink, he's vanished. Again. By now, our boy has already ninja'd his way to a towering stone wall behind the building. This was the exact spot Toby warned him about, probably praying his buddy wouldn't do anything monumentally dumb. With a ridiculously casual hop, our guy sails right over the wall and has a sudden flashback to his old magic teacher. The dude had told him that if he really wanted to get into the magic biz, he needed to hit up the magic association in the city of Yabo. Now, what's waiting for him on the other side is a real eye-opener, and our dude just freezes for a sec, taking it all in. He's just vibing with the city's one-of-a-kind architecture. This little corner is all peaceful and serene, but the main street? Absolute chaos. You got merchants on every corner shouting their sales pitches, trying to move their merch. Meanwhile, our raven-haired hero just casually strolls through the chaos. He's just soaking in the whole aesthetic when his eyes lock onto this epic castle with pristine white walls, sitting right in the heart of the city. And yep, he knows exactly what it is. That's the Magic Association, his final destination. But before waltzing in, he slickly pulls some kind of mask from his pocket. Gotta play it smart, you know. No need to go announcing his secret identity to the world. The entrance was surprisingly dead, so he makes a beeline straight for the main reception desk. And who does he run into? A blue-haired girl who's all, "Can I help you?" Our guy recognizes her instantly. It's Molly, one of his classmates. He's left wondering what the heck she's doing working here. Molly offers him a top-shelf mentor, but the price tag is absolutely bananas. When our boy hears the cost, he's hit with some serious sticker shock. Like, what even is that number? He's obviously not packing that kind of heat in his wallet, so he just shrugs it off and heads for the exit. But just as he's about to dip, Molly calls him back. She's like, "Hey, if cash is the problem, you could always just sign up for the association's library." Our boy whips around, totally surprised, and has to ask again just to make sure he heard her right. A library? Turns out this place is stacked with thousands of books all about magic. And the best part? The price is exactly zero. Our hero, realizing he can get his learn on without dropping a single cent, gets instantly hyped and asks to sign up right then and there. There's a catch, of course. To get in, they need to see his mage certificate, which, he conveniently doesn't have. Molly, who totally thought he was already a mage, explains the certificate is just to prove you actually know your stuff. Then she suggests he can just prove his skills on the spot by giving them a little magic show. Our guy's a little hesitant, asking if it's actually cool to take the test right here, right now. The answer? A big ol' yes. But Molly hits him with a warning. The specialist on duty today is a notorious hard-ass. Apparently, only a measly 10% of people actually pass his test. Even with those odds, our hero isn't fazed in the slightest and agrees to take the exam. I mean, climbing back over that wall would be a total drag, right? A few minutes later, they arrive at the examiner's room. They meet the man himself, a dude named Andrew. Our boy immediately clocks the guy's fit, a red mage's robe with 2 silver stripes. Translation? Mid-level fire mage. This mage doesn't mess around and gets straight to the point, asking who the kid is and what's the deal with the mask. Our guy introduces himself as Chenlu from his past life and spins a story about the mask hiding a gnarly training burn. The old dude sitting nearby immediately chimes in with a snarky comment. He basically says, "Your fireballs must be real special if you manage to hit your own face." Andrew, now slightly interested, thinks the kid's name is weird and figures, given his age. He can't be more than a low-level mage, at best. Molly suggests they head to the official exam room to test his skills, but Andrew just hits her with a blunt no. This totally catches her off guard. The examiner says they don't need a whole room for this and that the test can happen right here, right now, basically telling our boy to put on a show. Our hero looks at the mage, completely baffled, wondering if this guy is seriously telling him to cast magic in this tiny office. He's just looking around like, dude, there's no room in here. The old-timer basically scoffs, telling Andrew not to worry about the pathetic little sparkler our boy's about to conjure up. Our hero doesn't even waste breath arguing. He's just like, bet. He squares up with the examiner and starts channeling some serious arcane energy into his palm. The proctor is clearly not impressed with his technique, but then plot twist, an absolutely insane amount of power starts swirling in our guy's hand. Suddenly, the entire room has a collective oh crap moment as they realize this ain't no sparkler. Andrew starts screaming for him to abort mission, but the cancel subscription button is long gone, so our boy decides to just send it. The whole room goes supernova as a freaking sun gets born in his hand. Blinding flash washes out the screen, and this absolute unit of a fireball rockets straight for the examiner. Dude was not ready for this heat and makes a desperate dive for the door. And then, kaboom! A Michael Bay-level explosion rocks the tiny room. When the ringing in our ears stops, all that's left is dead silence and a whole lot of dust, and smoke thick enough to choke a dragon. The girl who was spectating inhales a lungful of that nonsense and starts hacking like crazy, trying to get her bearings to see the final score. Peeking through the smog, she spots an old dude, also coughing, who looks like he just pulled off a last-second magic trick. And right where the examiner used to be, there's a massive, shimmering blue shield holding back the apocalypse. Andrew, meanwhile, is eating floor, covered in debris, with a look that just screams, what the heck just happened? So, clutch play by Gandalf over here, who threw up the shield just in time to save Mr. Clean. He's holding the barrier, looking dead serious, trying to pierce the gloom with his gaze. The examiner is so deep in shock, he's basically a statue with a pulse, and the old-timer has to literally shake him by the shoulders to reboot his brain. The girl is just frozen, jaw on the floor. Our boy, seeing the absolute mess he's made, immediately throws out a "my bad, guys." He explains he thought they were ready for the full-throttle experience, which is why he didn't hold back. After all that drama, our boy officially passed the test. Fast forward a bit, and he's in another room, collecting his official mage license and, you guessed it, a library card. He grabs the paperwork and starts checking it out. The girl from the audience strolls up, basically saying his little stunt back there was mind-blowing. Our protagonist, who we now know is named Chenlu, gives her a cool thanks, a quick see ya, and dips. But here's the kicker. He used her name. And she's just left there, buffering, trying to figure out if they've met before and how in the world he knew her name. Cut to the library. And Chenlu is gobsmacked by the sheer volume of books. We're talking hoarder's-level collection here. He doesn't mess around, grabbing a tome and plopping down at an empty table to get his nerd on. And get this, our boy's genuinely surprised to find the books are packed with legit, high-value info. He's laser-focused on the sections about magical and spiritual power. Basically, the long and short of it is, a mage's power level is their spiritual power stat. The higher your SP, the bigger the boom. But wait, there's more. Top-tier mages can literally hijack the elements from weaker casters, total power move. But the book's explanation of the 4 magical elements is kind of whack, because the science in this world is from the Dark Ages. See, the mages here are convinced these 4 elements are the building blocks of literally everything. Not just magic, but like, the whole universe. They think every other element is just a cocktail of these main 4. From a modern science point of view, this theory is laughably ancient. Like, any high school kid knows, matter is made of elements from the periodic table, not just 4. But since magic and its elements are a real thing here, our protagonist can't just slap a scientific label on it. Then, bam, a light bulb goes off over his head. What if you could mess with the magical elements in a totally new way? Deep in this thought spiral, he suddenly shoots out of his chair, freaking out every single person in the library. Because if his theory is correct, he might be on the verge of inventing a whole new brand of magic. Without missing a beat, he snatches up the papers scattered on his table. No hesitation, our boy packs his gear and straight up bolts from the library. He's got a wild theory to test and makes a beeline for the Magic Association. By the time he gets there, totally gassed, he's sprinting down a hallway when the dudes from his test spot him. Yup, the examiner and the old-timer were just chilling right there, still totally reeling from the absolute madness they just witnessed. And to set the mood, some blue-haired girl is casually serving them tea. This Andrew dude chimes in that this Chenlu character has the spiritual power of a wet noodle, but somehow he just conjured a fireball big enough to barbecue a dragon. And the wildest part? The old-timer couldn't even get a handle on the element the kid summoned. The gray-robed mage is now convinced this kid is running some next-level cheat codes. The sun's dipping low, so our protagonist decides it's time to bounce from the city and get back to the academy. On his way, he just effortlessly parkours over a massive stone wall like it's a speed bump, sticking the landing without kicking up a single speck of dust. Total show-off. Our boy isn't about to waste a second and decides to start cooking up that new magic on the spot. 1,000 ideas start firing off in his brain as he struggles to nail down something fresh. The protagonist takes a deep breath, and boom, this bizarre whitish energy, a flow he's never seen before, starts swirling around him. He quickly figures out this new juice is coming from inside him, and he can totally control it. So he tries to channel this Kai flow to cook up a second element. A ball of magic materializes in his hand and morphs into oxygen. Or at least, he thinks it's oxygen. It's not like it came with an ingredient list. There was no way to tell just by looking at it. So Blair starts compressing the oxygen in his palm, making it way more dense and concentrated. His logic? If this is really oxygen, all he has to do is light it up to find out. But attempt number 1 is a total dud. He adds fire and gets nothing but a sad little puff of smoke from his hand. Not one to give up, he runs the insane experiment back. He whips up the oxygen in his hand one more time, squishes it down real tight, and then lights that sucker on fire. And suddenly, a titanic explosion just rips through the area. The shockwave is so gnarly it shatters the windows of all the nearby buildings. Just to paint a picture for you, even a glass just chilling on the math teacher's desk suddenly spiderwebs with cracks. The teacher hears the apocalyptic boom coming from the street and drops everything to see what in the world just happened. Through her newly cracked window, she spots the blast zone right near the building. In the middle of a lawn, a geyser of sparks and smoke is just billowing into the sky, and our boy is standing right in the center of his own glorious mess. He's trying to catch his breath in the thick, soupy smoke that's engulfing him, as the wind starts whipping debris around like a blender on high. Then, the protagonist thinks to himself how lucky he was to react so fast. But then, a shot of our boy's face, now covered in sweat, reveals a look of pure, unadulterated terror. He glances to the side, trying to assess the collateral damage. Apparently, weaponized oxygen is a tad more powerful than our protagonist had originally calculated. All of a sudden, he hears a voice yelling from a distance, demanding to know what just went down. Our boy spins around and sees some dude sprinting right at him. He really didn't expect it to be that loud. Our protagonist decides the best move is to bail before he gets grounded for life, so he yeets himself into the woods to hide. Despite the chaos, it seems Blair actually managed to create something seriously powerful. Fast forward a bit, and we see him in the classroom, replaying the whole explosive night in his head. He's totally wiped from pulling an all-nighter studying, so he decides to power nap right there at his desk. But for him, peace was never an option. And out of nowhere, someone starts whacking him hard on the back. It was Toby, who frantically launches into all the juicy drama from last night. To throw off any suspicion, our black-haired hero claims he was sleeping like the dead. The word on the street is there was a massive explosion near the third-year building that shattered every single window. Everyone assumes some god-tier mage went ballistic, but nobody has a clue why. Our protagonist casually mentions he's never seen a mage that strong, and his friend just gives him a look of utter disbelief. He asks what he means he's never seen a high-level mage. After all, their own math teacher is a ridiculously high-level mage. Hearing this, Blair's face goes into full-on shocked Pikachu mode, and he literally jumps out of his seat. A little later, our hero decides to go talk to the teacher himself, and the scene cuts to him knocking on her office door. She opens it almost instantly and greets her student. Turns out, he came at the perfect time because she was just about to go looking for him. She informs him that the nerds at the Mathematicians Association already published an article on Ralph's enigma, and since he was the brainiac who came up with the solution, his name is front and center on the list of authors. The teacher is practically gushing, congratulating him for cracking what's basically the final boss of math problems. But he just shrugs it off, saying he's actually here for something else. To the blonde teacher's utter shock, he says he wants to study math with her and asks for her help. She just stares at him, completely short-circuiting. This dude was all about becoming a mage, and now he's suddenly got a burning passion for algebra, says he doesn't want any regrets. He even drops this wild line about feeling like he must have been some kind of legendary mathematician in a past life. The teacher, absolutely overwhelmed with emotion, snatches his hand, calling his name dramatically. She completely loses her cool and presses his hand right up against her chest, gushing about how happy she is to hear it. And she pulls him into a hug, declaring that from now on, they're having daily math sessions after school. Mortified, our guy tries to squirm out of the awkward embrace, gently pushing her away while using the moment to also ask for a little help with his magic. Still completely red-faced from the whole scene, he hears her agree to literally everything and decides it's time to make a tactical retreat. Our boy is already halfway to the door, desperate to bail. He yanks it open. The teacher calls out, reminding him they have a date for tomorrow's lesson. He just agrees, ready to bolt. But then, out of the blue, she tells him to hold on for just one more minute. She then hops onto her desk, clasps her hands, and you can see the gears turning as she tries to figure out what to say. Blair is just standing there, sweating, totally confused. Then, it clicks for the teacher. This dude only signed up for math tutoring to get a backdoor into magic lessons. The realization hits her hard. His whole passionate plea was a total sham. Seeing he's been caught red-handed, our hero panics, trying to cook up an excuse on the fly. And then, a stroke of genius hits him. He blurts out that since they're going to be spending all this time together anyway, it'll just be way easier to ask about magic stuff then. But before he can even finish the sentence, the teacher's hand clamps down on his shoulder like a vice. She's got a death grip on him, and the boy is totally bewildered, bracing for the worst. But instead, she tells him he has a real talent for math and that he should use it as a tool. Apparently, his lame excuse was good enough for her. She tells him to go get some rest and not to dare forget to show up after school. Blair walks away thinking this woman is a weird mix of brilliant and a little bit nuts. Time jump to the next evening, and Blair actually shows up for his lesson. He doesn't even bother knocking, just waltzes right into the classroom. And what does he see? Two girls sitting at the front desk, just chatting away. One of them, Isabella, gives him a look that could curdle milk. Clearly annoyed he's crashing her private time with the teacher. Without missing a beat, she straight up asks what the hell he's doing there. The teacher quickly apologizes to Isabella, explaining she forgot to mention that Blair would be joining their little study group. The teacher asks Isabella to be nice to the new guy, but the look on her face screams, "I would rather not." The blonde then calls our protagonist over to sit next to the other student and says she's cooked up a little problem for him. The question was simple. A stone is dropped into a well. A little bit later, another stone, twice as heavy, is also dropped. The million-dollar question, when does the second stone catch up to the first? Isabella starts to chime in, saying they need to know the time gap between the drops. But before she can finish, Blair cuts her right off. Our boy, without a hint of hesitation, flat out declares the second stone will never catch up to the first. He explains that if you ignore air resistance, a heavy object doesn't fall any faster than a light one. His answer makes the blonde girl next to him absolutely furious. She accuses him of not even knowing the absolute basics. According to her, literally everyone knows that an object's falling speed depends on its weight. Heavier equals faster. She says the ancient sages proved this and that even a kid knows it. But our protagonist is not buying what she's selling. And from the look on his face, his patience is wearing pretty thin too. He shoots back that just because a bunch of old guys in robes said something centuries ago doesn't make it true, and asks if she's ever actually seen it happen in real life. The blonde is livid that this guy would dare question the sacred wisdom of the ancients. The tension in the room skyrockets because neither one is about to back down. So our boy just lays it on them, saying science is all about cold, hard facts, and if you can't prove something, it's basically just a fairy tale. Another student tries to make it a bet, but our guy is like, nah. The teacher's trying to de-escalate before a full-on nerd brawl breaks out, but then bam, the mayor's daughter slaps down 10 gold coins, and just like that, he's all in. The teacher does a massive facepalm, totally defeated by this kid's hustle. A little later, they find the perfect spot for this little science showdown. She makes one last-ditch effort, pointing out that, hello, one rock is literally twice the size of the other, so maybe they should just drop it. But my man is not backing down. After all, he wasn't about to say no to some easy cash. Literally no one there thinks he's got a shot because they're all ride or die for the ancient sages. The blonde even chimes in that there's a fine line between confidence and straight-up delusion. And right on cue, these wild wind platforms materialize out of thin air. The teacher hops on and just starts levitating. This bluish gust of wind shoots her up higher and faster. Our boy, having never witnessed flight magic, is just staring, totally mind-blown. He and Isabella are stuck on the ground, craning their necks as the teacher zips all the way up to the top of the clock tower. Once she's up there, she holds up both hands, one with a big rock, one with the little one. The mayor's daughter is already planning her victory speech, convinced he's about to get wrecked. To keep things legit, the teacher lines up the stones perfectly, and then she drops him. The rocks start plummeting, and for a hot second, it looks like they're totally out of sync. They're gaining speed, screaming towards the ground. But then, in a wild twist, bam! Both rocks smack the grass at the exact same instant. The blonde's jaw hits the floor, completely shook. Our dude, on the other hand, cracks a smug little smirk. Yeah, he knew it all along. Even the teacher, floating way up high, looks like her entire reality has just been shattered. She fires up the spell again and gently floats back down for a closer look. The two rocks are just chilling on the lawn while our trio is having a full-on existential crisis. It finally clicks for Isabella, and her face is a perfect picture of what the heck just happened. The two girls are completely bugging out, unable to process this. In their minds, the ancient sages were infallible geniuses. They couldn't be wrong. The teacher is just baffled, wondering how in the world her student just debunked a fundamental law of physics. He casually explains he read it in a book, but when he tried it himself with a couple of rocks, he realized reality didn't quite match the textbook. So yeah, turns out a truth that's been taught for over 1,000 years was just completely obliterated by dropping 2 rocks off a tower. Whoops. It's actually insane that in all that time, none of these so-called scholars ever thought to, double-check their work. The blonde grabs him by the shoulders, totally hyped, saying this law was a huge deal, and now a new one's going to be in the textbooks with Blair's name on it. Our guy isn't exactly thrilled about all this sudden clout, especially since he didn't do it alone. The professor tries to smooth things over, insisting all the credit goes to him and that she just played a small part. But she suggests he could refine the law with Isabella, and the girl's eyes just light up. Our hero replies that he'll absolutely need her help to nail down the details and invites her to team up. And just like that, every ounce of shyness evaporates and she just stares at him, stunned. Her brain goes into overdrive, processing his offer. She's already picturing the headlines announcing that 2 prodigies have emerged at the academy, working together to rewrite science. Her face goes beet red again, just thinking about being his lab partner. The girl tries to play it cool, not letting on how she really feels, and with a totally casual, not at all squeaky voice, she agrees. The blonde is lost in her own little world for a second, realizing this means they'll be working alone together. She starts brainstorming possible names for their new law, imagining their names, side by side, forever immortalized in science history, which of course makes her blush all over again. Then, totally out of left field, she offers to be his personal bodyguard if anyone at the academy gives him grief, all while her inner monologue is just screaming, "He's so smart and cute." Then, our boy holds his hand out to her, and her brain immediately jumps to, oh my god, a handshake. It's happening. This move gets Isabella all flustered and weirdly annoyed, though she can't even figure out why. So she just straight up asks him what the deal is with the outstretched hand, and in response, he flashes a 10 sign, demanding 10 gold coins. Clearly, our guy was on a completely different wavelength with that gesture. You can practically see the gold coin signs lighting up in his eyes. The girl, meanwhile, is super bummed she read the room wrong and just sulks away. So, in the end, our protagonist cashes in on the bet and starts stacking his newfound bling. He's absolutely euphoric, having snagged 10 gold coins from a simple dare and basically hit the jackpot overnight. Isabella's putting 2 and 2 together. This dude is way more about the bag than the clout, but her gut tells her that's not the full picture. Her words actually make our guy pause, sending him deep into thought. Seizing the moment, the girl, now genuinely curious, straight up asks him what he's really after. That question totally catches him off guard, cause until this very second, he hadn't even stopped to think about it. He replays everything he's done in this new world, and then, it clicks. A highlight reel from his past life flashes before his eyes, the daily grind as a teacher, his students, the whole 9 to 5. He remembers the friends he had to leave behind in a world that's now ancient history. After that trip down memory lane, he finally has an answer for her. But apparently, his true master plan isn't exactly something you broadcast to the world. So instead, he just dodges, denying he's only chasing cash for the good life. Plastering on the fakest smile imaginable, he bids farewell to Isabella and the professor. Left without the real tea, the blonde just watches him go, her mind racing. It dawned on her that he's carrying some heavy secrets, the kind you can't just share with anyone. A day zips by, and Blair's already slumped in his classroom chair, thinking this desk is a 5-star hotel compared to his closet-sized room. But hey, looking on the bright side, at least he's not broke anymore. He knows he can't just idle, he's got to make his next move. Just then, some blonde dude named B slams a hand on his desk, barking Blair's name. B grumpily informs him that some guy named Feige is looking for him. Blair is completely clueless, asking who that is, since he's never heard the name in his life. B does not appreciate that answer, gets ticked off, and yanks our boy up by the hoodie. But out of nowhere, a voice cuts in, ordering the guy to let Blair go, pronto. And over yonder, another blonde dude materializes, all dapper and adjusting his tie. Turns out, this was the infamous Feige, the big shot who was hunting for our protagonist. And get this, he wasn't flying solo. He rolled up with 2 goons who looked like they gargled nails for breakfast. They're giving Blair the death stare, trying to set him on fire with their eyes. This Feige character looks at Blair with total disgust, while our boy is just confused, since he's never seen the dude before. The preppy blonde in the blue shirt then strolls up to our protagonist, asking if he's Blair. He gives him a slow, insulting up and down, then lets out a sarcastic laugh right in his face. And that's when the light bulb goes off for our protagonist. With a stone-cold expression, he tells B to get his hands off him and then introduces himself, demanding to know what's going on. The smug blonde lays it out plain and simple. Stay away from Isabella. In his world, a nobody like Blair shouldn't even be breathing her air. Message delivered, Feige tells his crew it's time to dip, and they all peel out. On his way out, the blonde bully shoulder checks Toby, who was just trying to pass by. The poor guy can't handle the hit and just collapses to his knees. He's so terrified he freezes up, not daring to make a peep. He just waits quietly for the pack of wannabe gangsters to leave. A bit shaky, Toby walks over to our hero and asks if he's okay. Blair plays it cool, saying they just wanted to talk. But Toby is bugging out, completely baffled as to why Feige would just roll up on Blair like that. And then, Toby spills the beans. That blonde guy is Feige, the class president, and the entire academy is petrified of him. He's from the super famous Howard family, the son of a viscount. And to make things even spicier, his dad is a top dog in some hush-hush secret society, and a bunch of the teachers here are card-carrying members. Toby, trying to be a good wingman, says he gets that Blair is mesmerized by Isabella's goddess-level beauty, but he begs his friend not to blow off Feige's warning. At this, our boy gets all flustered, since that wasn't even close to what he was thinking. Time skips forward to noon as the final bell rings. Blair's already sitting with Isabella, but he's totally checked out, his mind a million miles away. He's busy theory crafting how to properly weaponize his new oxygen technique. The biggest perk? It doesn't require any magic or those flashy hand signs. But here's the catch. The dude's still stuck on level 1, trying to figure out how to juggle 2 elements at the same time. His little daydream gets power slammed by Isabella, who tells him to quit goofing off. She's all business, telling him to get on that math problem the teacher assigned. Our hero, mid-yawn, just slides a piece of paper over to her. The second Isabella lays eyes on it, she sees a mess of formulas and realizes he finished the whole thing ages ago. She's absolutely speechless, especially since she's still sweating over the first half. Our protagonist then drops some wisdom. You can't just use the same old tricks for everything. According to him, the real secret is to switch up your thinking. Trying her best to ignore his smug aura, she looks down at the paper, totally embarrassed. Seizing the awkward silence, our boy remembers there was something he wanted to ask her. He's dying to know how she summons 2 fireballs at once, and she just casually replies that she can actually pop out a whole bunch of them. This little factoid completely short-circuits his brain, leaving him just staring at her in total confusion. It finally dawns on the blonde that Mr. Black-haired prodigy is a 1 fireball wonder. And so, the roasting begins. He tries to defend himself, claiming he's read a gazillion magic books, but none of them mention multicasting. The girl, in response, explains that books only cover the tutorial level, not the advanced pro-gamer moves. To learn that kind of stuff, you'd have to shell out for a super expensive magic consultant. But then she dangles a little offer. Of course, if someone were to call me sis, I might just teach them myself. Without missing a single beat, and with a stone-cold poker face, our protagonist immediately calls her sis. She was not ready for that level of shamelessness and is completely thrown for a loop. Utterly deadpan way he dropped the magic word left her a blushing, flustered mess. But hey, a promise is a promise, so she agrees to teach the guy. With that settled, they dip from the academy to find a more private spot to train. The girl focuses up and lets it rip. Suddenly, a whole constellation of yellow fireballs is just floating around her. Our boy is completely starstruck by the sight, considering he can barely squeak out too. But what really gets him is how perfectly stable her spells are. The girl breaks it down for him. The big secret to multi-fireballing is all in the distribution of your spiritual power. See, most noobs think you have to dump all your energy into one spot, but once you master the technique, you can split that power up into different streams. Each one of those little power packets can fuel its own spell. And that, my friends, is how you get a fireball party. Our hero's gears start turning, asking if you could cast different spells from each stream, and she excitedly confirms. But, oh, little do they know, a golden-haired dude is watching them from the bushes. This guy's name is B, and he's totally convinced they're having a romantic moment. Right next to him, some other dude is gripping a wall with so much jealous rage that it's starting to crumble. Boss, who just happened to be lurking nearby, sees the whole thing and starts sweating bullets. He makes a silent vow that our protagonist is going to pay, big time. Meanwhile, at that very same moment, our boy is completely in the zone, trying to slice his spiritual power into 9 perfect little portions. Blonde is coaching him, telling him to follow her lead and take it step by step. With a smirk, she says not to feel bad if he fails, since it took even her a solid 6 months to learn. The words are barely out of her mouth when, poof, a whole swarm of fireballs erupts into existence, circling the young man. The girl's jaw just hangs open as she stares at the scene, demanding to know how he did that. He just casually replies that he split his power into 9 parts and summoned the fireballs. Duh. But she is not buying that for a second and presses him on how he pulled off a 6-month technique in less than 6 seconds. Blair just gives her a slightly confused look and says he just understood the concept and did it, an answer that simple completely fries her circuits. She just stands there, buffering, staring at the guy. Her face turns 50 shades of red as she realizes he's not just a math genius, he's a straight-up magic cheat code. Then, that embarrassment morphs into pure rage because she grinded for way longer than he did. To save what's left of her pride, she lies, saying she did the same thing. With her ego in tatters, the girl just straight up ditches the training session and bolts. Our boy is left totally clueless about why she's so ticked off, chalking it up to another one of those women are a mystery moments. He shoves a hand in his pocket and suddenly feels something weird. It snaps him out of his thoughts, and he stops to figure out what the heck it is. Meanwhile, Isabella is still fuming, power walking back to the academy like she's on a mission to personally lecture the dean. But hold up, Blair materializes out of thin air, zipping after her and snagging her arm. She whips around, totally startled, ready to unleash another verbal beatdown, like, what now? But then she spots it, his hand held out with a peace offering. It's this little bracelet thingy, a red string with a slick little golden cat charm. Our boy holds it out, actually uses her name, and is basically like, here, this is for you. He lays it on thick, saying he only managed to learn the magic because of her, and he's genuinely grateful. Isabella just freezes, staring at the charm, her brain short-circuiting on how to process this. And boom, the blush is back, full force. She's biting her lip, totally flustered, just staring at him like he just broke her entire worldview. Shocked, she mutters that maybe he's not a complete idiot after all high praise, coming from her, and with that, she yoinks the bracelet right out of his hand before he can blink. To hide her terminal case of the feels, she bolts, yelling over her shoulder that the gift is hideous. But in a genius move, she runs with her eyes squeezed shut, immediately tangles her own feet, and faceplants spectacularly onto the lawn. Not waiting for a hand, she scrambles up, letting out this super awkward laugh, absolutely dying of embarrassment inside. Then, the moment of truth, she peeks back to see his reaction. Blair's just standing there, blinking, completely bewildered by this whole sequence of events. But before he can even form a question, she's back on her feet and sprinting away for real this time. She's still shouting some classic insults as she disappears, vowing this isn't over. All our boy can do is heave a massive sigh, probably wondering if it was worth it. After that whole soap opera, he figures he's earned a break and just flops onto the grass for a little sunbathing. His logic? Hey, if she hated it that much, she wouldn't have snatched it. Besides, that thing set him back a cool 50 silver coins. Bro was originally going to give it to his math teacher, which is a whole other can of worms. His chill session gets rudely interrupted. He looks up and sees 3 dudes rolling up on him, casting a shadow over his sun time. The ringleader reminds Blair that the class president gave him a friendly warning to back off Isabella. Apparently, him getting cozy with the mayor's daughter is making Mr. President sweat. Blair doesn't even bother with a comeback. He just gets to his feet, a stone-cold serious look on his face. And then, in a move nobody saw coming, he just turns around and books it. The blonde bully and his goon squad are like, "Wait, what?" and immediately give chase. Look, our guy just doesn't see the point in brawling with these clowns. But then one of them crosses a line, yelling that Blair's dad was a coward who ran from a fight. And that hits a nerve. Blair skids to a dead stop. The blonde punk sees his chance and doubles down on the trash talk. Thinking he's got him, the bully winds up for a massive sucker punch from behind. But as his fist flies forward, it just stops. Frozen in midair, inches from Blair's face. The dude's brain absolutely cannot compute this. And since he threw that punch with everything he had, the magical recoil sends him flying backward like a cartoon character. So, in a hilarious twist, the only person who gets decked is the guy who threw the punch. One look at Blair's face tells you he is 100% done with their crap. Meanwhile, Blondie is struggling to get up, his hand is completely torched and he's wailing in agony. But seeing this doesn't calm Blair down, it just cranks his fury up to 11. He roars that his father was a hero who died for his country, a damn good dad who earned his respect, especially after he was gone. Blair lays down the law. Nobody, and he means nobody, insults his dad. And as his rage peaks, 9 freaking fireballs ignite into existence around him. They're just orbiting him, and you better believe the bullies are paying attention now. They're totally floored, because last they checked, this dude had 0 magic. The thought of getting deep fried has them shaking in their boots. So his loyal crew immediately pieces out, leaving their leader to face the music alone. The blonde bully looks up at a seriously ticked-off Blair, pure terror in his eyes. Whatever he sees in Blair's eyes sends him into full-blown panic mode, and he starts begging for his life. The coward tries to pull the "hey, fighting is against the rules here" card. All he gets in return is a look that screams, "You think I care?" The panic in his eyes fizzles out, replaced by the cold, hard realization that he is screwed. He's just frozen on the spot. He's just staring up at Blair, completely out of options. Our guy, showing 0 signs of mercy, raises his hand to launch the fiery payload. Fireballs merge into one giant orb of pain and start hurtling toward the bully. But just then, Blair senses someone behind him. At the same time, Blondie squeezes his eyes shut, throwing his arms up for a shield that's about to do absolutely nothing, and totally shrieked for his mommy. But when the searing pain never came, he figured something was up and cracked an eye open. In front of him, the 9 fireballs of doom had just vanished, and in their place, some dude was taking a dirt nap right at his feet. Completely baffled, he tried to process what he was seeing, staring at Blair, who was just chilling on the ground, looking peaceful. The blonde-haired bully was still shook, but he nervously gave Blair a poke. "You know, the ol' you alive, bro, check." Seeing his golden opportunity, Blondie decided to book it before our hero came to, but he was stopped cold by a voice that meant business. Standing there was a math teacher, already checking on Blair. The blonde dude immediately started his "it wasn't me" tour, pleading his innocence. And the whole time, our main character was just sprawled on the grass, pulling the greatest fake-out in history. Blondie keeps trying to spin his story, but the audience's BS detectors are off the charts. The professor just keeps cranking up the pressure, telling him she knows exactly what his beef is with Blair. This whole pointless argument gets shut down by a guy with a magnificent beard who just materializes out of thin air. He totally puts Blondie on blast, pointing out that our dark-haired protagonist is literally unconscious on the ground. This is basically Exhibit A that the blonde dude's story was a complete fabrication. The man then orders him to his office, pronto, to face the music. He then turns to the vice president, basically saying this whole circus is the administration's fault and apologizing for the public drama. The two suits stroll off, debating the fallout, while the girl tries to reboot Blair. She's freaking out about him, but then she gets this weird, sudden chill. Our protagonist scoots away from her just a little, and his face is frozen in this perfect mix of uh-oh and heck yeah. The girl sees this and thinks he's seriously messed up, but he's just like, I was fine, right up until you tried to suffocate me with your enthusiasm. She then wraps him in a massive, mom-level hug, saying she was so worried. Right on cue, an older gentleman rolls up and says this whole dumpster fire will get sorted out, but they're actually here for something else entirely. The girl takes charge and introduces the two suits to Blair. The older one is Archel, the younger one is Calvin. Our boy gives a respectful nod, greeting the two academy bigwigs. Apparently, our guy's reputation is already spreading, and they know him as the kid who helped Professor Brittany crack the legendary Ruvo's enigma. But the professor immediately cuts the old guy off, correcting him that Blair was the one-man army who solved the whole thing solo. She just did the paperwork. Because he cracked this puzzle, Blair and the professor are now up for the prestigious Edwin Award, which is a massive flex for the entire city. And if they're down, these guys will pull every string imaginable to make sure they win. But the girl is way more focused on whether Blair can actually get the award himself. The old man lets out a deep sigh, like he was totally expecting this exact question, and looks at her. He lays it out. Blair is just way too young. Nobody in the entire world of mathematics pulls off a move like that at his age. If the professor claims he solved the Ruvo's enigma alone, literally no one is going to believe her. The girl looks like she's about to go to war for him, but our protagonist just says her name and takes her hand. She looks back at him, her face a mix of sad and let down. Sensing the vibe was about to get real awkward, Archel suggests they chill out and figure all this out later. She agrees, and the two men make their exit. Time skips forward, and the academy is bathed in that perfect golden hour sunset light. The professor and Blair are doing that classic, awkward silent walk down the hall, both lost in their own heads. Out of nowhere, she tells him that the standard solution was whatever, but the method he used, that was a quantum leap for the entire history of math. That award has to be his, period. It makes zero sense for anyone else to get the credit. This leaves Blair completely floored, scrambling for a reply. After a beat, he says the award shouldn't go to him. He then drops the line that, as far as he's concerned, Professor Brittany stopped being just some rando teacher to him a long time ago. This smooth as heck compliment makes her go completely red. She's surprised, but you can tell it's the good kind. Totally flustered by her own reaction, she just tells her student to get lost and go home, leaving him standing there wondering where he possibly went wrong. A little while later, a massive crowd was already swarming the main bulletin board. The whole campus is buzzing about Professor Brittany's new paper, and you guessed it, the genius student who cracked the code. People are losing their minds, saying actual scientists spent centuries failing to solve the Ruvo's enigma, and while everyone's hyping him up, our hero decides to go full-on stealth mode to avoid the spotlight, and for a hot second, it actually works. Nobody clocks him. But then, not too far off, he picks up the sound of some serious drama, like a full-blown shouting match erupting from a nearby room. He spots the old headmaster he met earlier and then sees someone else lurking in the back. It's Bod and his dad, and Pops is absolutely tearing his son a new one over that fight. Let's just say this guy's parenting style is intense. To really drive the point home, he starts smacking his own kid around. Our protagonist is watching all this, totally fuming, but trying his best to stay out of it. After putting on a show for everyone, Blondie's father suddenly starts groveling at Artil's feet, begging for forgiveness. He's pleading with the director not to give his son the boot from the academy, but what Bod did was a major screw-up. He shattered a cardinal rule of the school, and before the old man can even finish his sentence, Blondie's dad just hits the deck, begging for the director's mercy like his life depends on it. He just stays planted on the floor, desperately pleading for them to let Bod stay, despite the massive L he just took. Bod is mortified by his dad's behavior and tells him to get up already. Blair, against his better judgment, decides to wade into the mess. He strolls up to Artil, gives the director a nod, and gets one back. Playing it cool like he just walked in, our boy asks the director what the tea is with Bod. Instantly, Blondie's face contorts with rage when he sees the guy he tried to fight is now in his business. Artil lays it out. The student started some static, broke a huge rule, and the academy has already decided he's getting the axe. Swallowing what's left of his pride, Bod's father, still on his knees, grabs Blair's sleeve like he's a life raft. He promises to set his son straight and begs for another chance, explaining how he basically sold a kidney to get his kid into this prestigious academy. If Bod gets expelled, his future is officially toast. After all that melodrama, our dark-haired hero lets out a heavy sigh, steels himself, and then turns to Artil, calmly asking him not to nuke the kid's entire academic career over this. Bully, hearing this from the very guy he was trying to throw hands with, is completely stunned, like his brain just blue-screened. After considering the request, the director says the academy can put the expulsion on ice for now. Bod and his dad are both shocked and massively relieved, but Artil drops a heavy warning. If Bod ever pulls a stunt like this again, there are no do-overs. In response, Blondie's dad shoves his son's head down into a respectful bow. Then he orders Bod to thank Blair and Artil, who's way too terrified of his old man to argue. The blonde kid bows and mumbles a thank you to the principal and Blair. The old man accepts the apology and tells them both to get their butts to class. They get to the auditorium, and our boy is just about to head in. But Blondie stops him, asking straight up why he bothered to defend him. With his hand on the door, our protagonist pauses, giving it a moment's thought. He explains he only did it because he didn't want to see Bod disappoint his father. The kid stares at the ground, actually processing what Blair said. Then he looks up and gives him a legit thank you. He also tells him to watch his back around a dude named FaZe, because that guy holds a grudge. He then adds the spicy little detail that FaZe's uncle is the academy's vice principal. Great. Later, after class, Blair hits up the library as usual, trying to decompress from the absolute dumpster fire of a day he's had. But out of nowhere, the librarian appears at the door with a look so serious, you just know this isn't going to be a friendly chat. Our protagonist is caught off guard and asks him what's up. The librarian cuts right to the chase and asks if Blair has been beefing with anyone lately. Our boy is surprised and totally lost, asking if something went down. And then, the bomb drops. He's been 86 from his library gig, and to top it all off, he's been evicted from his dorm room. The worst part? The order came straight from the top, from the vice principal himself. After getting hit with that bombshell, our protagonist decides to track down Professor Brittany, the one who's been trying to get him and Isabella to go to some math seminar. Blair explains he can't go because he's officially homeless and needs to figure out where he's going to live. Without missing a beat, the professor invites him to crash at her place, casually mentioning she has a spare room. Our boy's brain immediately short-circuits at the offer, already running through 1,000 awkward scenarios of living with his very attractive professor. So, our boy awkwardly asks if, him crashing at her place would be a total drag. But she's just like, nah, it's cool, because now they can have math study sessions literally whenever, which I guess tracks for him, but he still went ahead and clapped Red's cheeks anyway. So they shake on it, and she tells Blair to link up after the big dance. But then, out of nowhere, Isabella basically kicks down the door, demanding to know what he's doing there. The professor just drops the bomb that Blair's not only joining their seminar crew, but he's also her new roomie. The whole new roomie thing sends the blonde into a full-on meltdown, and she starts going off. The professor, completely clueless about why her student is having an aneurysm, is just like, chill, Blair's a good dude, what's the big deal? Meanwhile, our protagonist is just standing there, caught in the crossfire for, like, the 10th time today. So to kill the awkward vibe, the professor basically yeets the girl out, telling both of them to go get glammed up for the seminar. The prof then hits him with the "you got a suit for this thing?" question, clarifying that it's a black tie affair. Blair, whose fashion sense is probably whatever's clean, is totally stumped. So he's like, does a magic tunic count? And the professor is basically like, heck yeah, that's perfect. Cut to later. The sun is down, the bass is bumping, and the ball is officially on. The who's who of magic school starts rolling up, and bam, there's our boy, looking like a deer in headlights on the red carpet, sandwiched between two absolute dimes in stunning gowns. As they pull up to the venue, Isabella makes the grand announcement. We're here, peasants. Turns out, they're at the legendary Howard family mansion, which is basically Grand Central Station for the Magic Society's shindigs. And this isn't just any club. We're talking the Illuminati of the kingdom, which explains why they're always crashing here. Oh, and get this, the mansion belongs to their stuck-up class representative. Of course it does. Up ahead, we spot a trio of dudes locked in what looks like a very serious debate about. Probably something dumb. And who should stroll up but their teacher, Brittany, making a beeline for Vice President Calvin. Calvin clocks the prof and Blair's crew and flashes this super chipper. Hey guys, our boy, ever the polite one, shoots a what's up right back. Isabella, who's just standing there, is looking totally lost, trying to figure out how these two even know each other. The vice president then puts Blair on the spot, asking him to intro his squad, even dropping a casual, "We were just talking about you," which is never not awkward. Professor Brittany, sensing a teen drama moment brewing, wisely decides to peace out, promising to circle back later. So Blair and Isabella step inside, and their jaws hit the floor. This place is ridiculously bougie. But our hero, ever the man of refined tastes, is completely dazzled by the buffet table and makes a dead sprint for the free food. No hesitation. He starts piling his plate high with mini quiches and whatever else he can grab, inhaling it all like he hasn't eaten in a week. Isabella, however, is absolutely mortified by this display, convinced he's tanking their social cred. But then, something across the room snags Blair's attention, and he zones in on it with laser focus. It's this massive painting on the wall, showing two rivers connected by a bunch of bridges. The blonde girl explains that this is, like, the Howard family's most prized possession. The painting's called The Seven Bridges of the Royal Capital. Blair, bless his heart, is like, the what now? And makes her repeat the name, totally broadcasting the fact that he's completely out of the loop. And of course, their little chat is overheard by the homeowner's son, a smarmy playboy type who immediately swoops in to mock him. This dude starts roasting our guy for for being himself. Isabella, not having any of it, jumps in to defend Blair, reminding the jerk that he's their guest and to show some basic respect. But this trust fund kid could not care less. He just doubles down, clowning on Blair for being so uncultured that he doesn't recognize this supposedly super famous painting. Isabella, realizing this guy is a lost cause, just grabs Blair's hand to drag him away from the drama. But oh no, the class rep missed her. Mansion himself sees the hand holding and gets seriously triggered by the scene. So he stomps over, gets right in Blair's personal space, and sneers that all he's good for is hiding behind a girl's skirt. In response, Blair, completely unfazed, drops a little zinger and asks what the real deal with the painting is. This question, for some reason, completely short-circuits Isabella's brain, and she just stares at him like she is not picking up what he's putting down. Blair then lays it out. If he can crack the code of the painting's story, he thinks he can cook up a brand new magic technique. The rich kid overhears this and just scoffs, firing back with, "Professor Brittany only put your name on that paper, because she felt sorry for you." But Isabella isn't letting that slide and claps back. "No way, Blair cracked that riddle all on his own." And in response, Mr. Moneybags decides it's time to go full-on drama queen. He gets up on his soapbox and bellows for the whole party to hear that Blair here is about to solve the great riddle of the painting. Isabella is just standing there, completely shook by his level of petty, and realizes this dude just made their private beef a public spectacle. Immediately, the gossip mill kicks into high gear with everyone throwing shade at Blair. All this drama finally gets the attention of Professor Brittany and Calvin, who were chilling further back. The blonde dude then taunts our hero, basically saying he's got to solve the riddle in front of a live studio audience now. Out of nowhere, a hand snags our boy's arm. It's Professor Brittany, looking like she's seen a ghost, asking him why in the world he decided to pick a fight with FaZe. She lays it on him thick. The Howard family basically runs this city, and messing with them is a one-way ticket to Trouble Town. If he keeps this act up, he's going to have the entire academy on his back, not just the mathletes. And to make things even spicier, this Seven Bridges problem has been stumping geniuses for centuries. FaZe is just setting him up for an epic public fail. So of course FaZe, the golden-haired goon, overhears this and swivels on Professor Brittany. He taunts her, all like, "Didn't you just call Blair a genius? But now it seems like you've got zero faith in him." The professor gets all flustered and tries to clap back, but he totally cuts her off. That's when Blair, radiating pure main character energy, says he'll absolutely take the challenge. He calls it a little thank you gift to the family head for getting him booted from the library. The girls nearby are totally shook. They had no idea that was the real tea behind the library incident. They're like, "Bro, are you for real?" But Blair's already laser-focused on FaZe. He confirms he'll solve it and that the bet is on. So, FaZe launches into the epic lore of the so-called Seven Bridges Challenge. Turns out, some OG Howard family ancestor cooked this whole thing up ages ago. The head of the family was a big-shot official and noticed the capital had a funky layout. Back then, the city was way smaller, split by a river with two islands just chilling in the middle. To connect the whole shebang, they built 7 bridges. These things were the lifeblood of the city, connecting people and commerce. Then one day, this old patriarch is staring at the bridges and has a total galaxy brain moment. Is it possible to cross all 7 of them, hitting each bridge only once, and wind up exactly where you started? The second he asked that, mathematicians kingdom-wide absolutely lost their minds trying to crack it. A-list scientists literally flocked to the capital to take a swing at it. Time went on. People came up with a ton of theories, but no one could figure out how to get back to square one without backtracking. Until one day, the old dude who invented the challenge announces he's finally cracked the code. He told everyone to pull up the next day to watch him prove it. So, every math whiz in the nation gathered at the bridges, but they waited all day, and the guy was a complete no-show. A few days later, they found his body. The legend says he got so hyped about his discovery that he tripped and took an unscheduled swim in the river. His death was a massive L for the entire math world. The problem was never solved. Not even his own family has the answer key. Even with the solution lost to time, the family hung an engraving of the bridges in their hall to honor the guy. FaZe caps it off by saying this whole story is a huge source of family pride. Our boy instantly gets it, because this puzzle is a dead ringer for one from his old world. After his dramatic history lesson, FaZe hits Blair with a smug grin and asks if he really thinks he can find the solution. Blair just says, "Nope, I won't find a solution," and then he drops the bomb. "And if I can't, then nobody else can either." FaZe looks like he's about to explode with laughter. But it's Blair who can't hold it in, letting out a deep, mocking laugh. He just totally loses it, cackling right in the blonde dude's face, loud and clear. The crowd is just confused at this point, and their little beef is getting boring, so people start to dip. One of the girls mutters that Blair is just another arrogant punk who needs to be humbled, but her friend right next to her keeps her eyes locked on our boy, noticing the razor-sharp look in his eyes. To her, this dark-haired dude is playing 4D chess while everyone else is playing checkers. After his laughing fit dies down, our protagonist starts to explain his answer. He says that the Seven Bridges riddle simply has no solution, and that's precisely why he can't solve it. With that bombshell, the entire room goes dead silent, everyone's brains glitching as they try to process it. So, Teacher Brittany and Isabella immediately go into full-on gossip mode over his bombshell. Fizzy, however, completely loses his cool and starts blowing a gasket at our boy. He's like, "How could my family's first elder solve it if it's impossible?" But our hero just claps back with another question, basically asking, "Where are the receipts? Is there any actual proof your ancestor did anything?" Blondie is absolutely shook by the sheer audacity, sputtering about how his ancestor was basically a legend in the kingdom. But right as he's about to pop a vein, bam! Someone in the crowd slams a cane on the floor, telling everyone to shut their traps. The guy is Viscount Howard, and he proceeds to publicly roast his son Feisy for flexing the family name. The blonde kid instantly deflates like a sad balloon and mumbles an apology to his dad. Then the Viscount strolls over to Blair, giving him the classic "I've heard all about you" look. And our boy, laying it ice cold, just offers a polite bow to the head honcho. The Viscount then admits he saw the whole argument and even tosses out a weak apology for his kid's meltdown. And it's a but he immediately flips the script, saying he heard Blair call the riddle unsolvable, which is a massive diss to his family's honor. Our protagonist calmly starts explaining that the 7 bridges of the capital are, in fact, an unsolvable mess. The girl watching nearby can't help but notice he's radiating pure, uncut confidence. The Viscount starts looking a little twitchy, and through gritted teeth asks if he really wants to try and prove that wild claim right here, right now. Our main character doesn't even flinch, basically saying, "You bet, I can," ready to school the entire room. He explains that for ages, scholars tried to brute force the problem by just walking all the paths, which, was a decent shot. But then he hits them with the twist. They were all looking at the problem completely wrong. The whole time he's talking, he's been sketching on some paper, and now he holds it up for the big reveal. He breaks it down like he's on TikTok. Any complicated map problem like this can be turned into a simple connect the dots game. Each landmass is a point, each bridge a line. And just like that, the map of the 7 bridges is now a simple doodle. He explains, if you can trace every line without picking up your pen and end where you started, it's solvable. The entire crowd is just sitting there, minds collectively blown. You can hear people whispering about how they never saw it that way. At that moment, one of the 2 girls who was trash-talking Blair earlier has to admit, okay, he's not as simple as I thought. She basically tells her friend she was right all along. The other girl just hits her with the smuggest "I told you so" smirk you've ever seen, soaking in the sweet, sweet victory. But our boy isn't finished his lecture yet. He continues, explaining that for every bridge you use to enter a landmass, you need another bridge to get out. So, he simplifies the math. Points with an odd number of lines are odd points, and points with an even number of lines are even points. And that's when it clicks for Brittany. To complete the whole circuit, you have to pass through every single point. And to do that, everything needs to be perfectly paired up. Our boy confirms her theory with a nod, saying, "That's the key." And just then, some dude with glasses in the crowd finally gets it and is about to shout out the answer. But Blair cuts him off to deliver the finishing move himself. He explains that all 4 points in the puzzle are singular, or in other words, odd, which means no matter what you try, you can never, ever get back to where you started. Then he drops the mic. The 7 bridges puzzle has no solution. And it never did. The room goes dead silent as everyone tries to process this. Even the guy with the glasses has to admit the theory is flawless, which means the whole thing is a certified scam. Fizzy, now bright red with humiliation, just screeches that Blair is wrong. But it's too late. The truth is starting to sink in for everyone. The Howard family has been lying for generations. Fizzy keeps yelling for everyone to shut up, insisting he's wrong. But after a proof that clean, nobody is doubting that the puzzle is a total fake. The girl who believed in Blair from the start just scoffs that their famous ancestor was nothing but a con man. Overwhelmed by the crowd's judgment, the blonde kid, Feige, completely panics and starts calling for his dad. But instead of getting backup, he gets a massive fist delivered straight to his face. His own father, Viscount Howard, winds up and slugs him with everything he's got, sending the kid flying several meters. The head of the family starts screaming at Feige for not keeping his big mouth shut, blaming him for the Howard family getting absolutely owned in front of everybody. And he silently vows that the guy who dared to tarnish his family's name is going to pay. With that, the Viscount tries to pull a Houdini and disappear from the scene, trying to make a sneaky exit, when a voice cuts through the crowd. "Hold up, it's Blair," and he's about to drop some serious rulebook knowledge. He's like, "Hey, according to the math club bylaws, since I helped Feige, you owe me one." The Viscount freezes, does the mental math, and is like, "Fine." He grits his teeth and asks what Blair wants to know. And our boy's question is deceptively simple, a real curveball. He just asks, if a square has sides of 1, what's the actual length of the diagonal? The big man just stares, completely floored, like his brain just blue-screened. Brittany, ever the helpful one, jumps in like, Blair, these are the guys who invented the Howard theorem, right? Their whole claim to fame is that if the sides are 1, the diagonal squared equals 2. Mic drop. Blair's like, yeah, I get that, but that's not what I asked. He wants the actual length of the diagonal, not its squared-up cousin. And just like that, the Viscount's face goes ghost white. The panic is real. Even the crowd starts murmuring. Like, wait, what is the value of that stupid diagonal? All eyes are on the Viscount, waiting for the masterclass. But after a painfully long pause, the guy starts sweating bullets. 'Cause plot twist, he has no clue. And that's when it clicks for our hero. This dude knew. He knew about this number the entire time and was keeping it under wraps. See, back on Blair's Earth, scientists were respected nerds, but nobody was lining up for their autographs. But here, Scientists are basically rock stars even though their tech is kind of basic. You drop a big brain discovery, you get worldwide fame, clout with kings, the whole 9 yards. So naturally, the nerds formed a supergroup, stacked paper, got political juice, and became a legit powerhouse. And the Howard family? They're basically the godfathers of the whole math scene. So what they say is gospel. And this math society is a wild mix of geniuses, politicians, and even some holy rollers. Their core belief? The entire universe can be boiled down to clean, simple numbers. It's basically a carbon copy of the old Pythagorean school from back in the day. You know, the one started by that legendary triangle-loving dude from ancient Greece. These guys had a massive following, but one tiny little flaw in their logic brought the whole house of cards down. Their big oopsie was thinking everything could be explained with whole numbers or neat little fractions. They were convinced these were the only numbers you'd ever need to decode reality itself. Then some brainiac student named Hipparchus came along and blew a giant hole in their perfect little theory. He proved you literally could not find the diagonal of a square with just their precious fractions. This one discovery completely nuked the foundation of their entire worldview. And did they try to solve the problem? Nope. They went straight to, let's unalive the messenger. They grabbed poor Hipparchus, strapped a rock to him, and gave him a one-way ticket to Davy Jones's locker. But you can't drown the truth, my friends. It always floats to the top. Word got out about Hipparchus's inconvenient little problem, and in the end, the whole Pythagorean fan club went kaput. These new, messy numbers that broke all the rules got a name, irrational numbers. And from there, the world of math just exploded, spawning a whole new branch of study. And judging by the look on the Viscount's face, Blair can tell he's known about these irrational numbers for ages. Now he's just dying to know how this world's math mafia handled the scandal. The question put the Viscount in a tight spot, and the dude is practically melting into a puddle of nervous sweat. The crowd is buzzing, with people literally trying to figure out this diagonal on the spot. Even Brittany's hooked, asking, so what's the big deal? Why can't you just write the number down? Our guy explains it's a whole new class of number, and there are tons more where that came from. He then drops the bomb that someone else already discovered a number just like it, but the discovery got swept under the rug all thanks to Feige. And right then, the Viscount realizes the absolute dumpster fire he's in is 100% his son's fault. He stomps over to his kid, giving him a look that could curdle milk. But Feige is not about to catch these hands again, so he's frantically scanning for an escape route. So Feige does what any cornered rat would do, blames Blair for bringing shame to the family name. Fueled by pure rage, he just launches himself at our hero, ready to throw down. He's seeing red, fists balled up, ready to rumble. Blair sees the haymaker coming and gets ready to block, but then, completely out of left field. Just as Feige's about to redecorate Blair's face with his fist, a hand flashes out of nowhere and clamps down on his wrist like a vice. And who's our mystery hero? None other than the girl who's been side-eyeing Blair all night. Feige, looking like a confused puppy, starts screeching for her to let go. But our redhead is totally unbothered by his little tantrum, just politely hitting him with a, sorry, can't let you do that. He tries to yank his arm away, but nope. It's like trying to pull a tree out of the ground. Turns out, this girl is secretly packing some serious muscle. Then, a voice booms from the crowd, and Feige freezes like a deer in headlights. Oh yeah, that's Daddy. And the Viscount looks absolutely livid that his son is out here tarnishing the family brand. Bracing for the lecture of a lifetime, Blondie opens his mouth to explain, but all that comes out is absolute silence. Brain.exe has stopped working. Then, the head of the house steps up, cranks up the volume, and starts his public damage control tour, apologizing for his son's little outburst. He pulls the classic "it's all my fault" card, then pivots to Blair's magic number, assuring everyone that the math community will totally figure it out. Don't you worry your pretty little heads. He gives Blair a super polite thank you and a gotta go, but it's all an act. The dude shoots him a look that basically says, enjoy the party, peasant, before dipping. Blair, soaking up this little victory, just fires back at you too, buddy. And with that drama handled, the Viscount is probably having a full-on meltdown about this epic public humiliation. Blair, on the other hand, turns to his savior to give her a proper thank you. She's surprised he doesn't recognize her, asking how he could be so forgetful. But before he can answer, whack! Isabella comes out of nowhere and smacks him right on the back of the head. He's completely stunned, and she's fuming, demanding to know why he was flirting with another girl. This whole chaotic scene just makes the redhead crack up. She apologizes for crashing their lovers' quarrel. Blair and Isabella just stare at her, totally baffled, until she admits she's just kidding. Although, she adds, she's a little jealous of what they've got. This sends Isabella into a flustered panic, stammering that it's not like that at all. Blair finally asks the redhead, Alice, what she's even doing here. Alice just casually explains that she's a regular at these things, but she's surprised to see the mayor's daughter, of all people, in the mix. Professor Brittany jumps in with the hot goss, explaining that Alice's family are basically math royalty in this city, and she's been the family rep at these gigs for years. With the intro out of the way, Alice formally introduces herself to our boy and sticks out her hand for a shake. She mentions she's a third year at the academy, in the same class as Isabella. Blair plays it cool, shakes her hand, and says the pleasure's all his. Then Alice leans in, like way in, and just stares at him, full-on analyzing his soul. And with her invading his personal bubble like that, our boy's eyes Well, they take an unscheduled. So Alice is just laser focused on our boy, and you can literally see Isabella's soul leave her body, realizing she just can't compete on that level. Some classmate of the mayor's daughter sidles up, all like, hey, great presentation, you should really get serious about math, but Blair just hits her with a hard pass out of nowhere. He's basically like, yeah, I'm gonna have to decline, and just points her toward Professor Brittany, saying she's the real MVP who taught him everything. Alice immediately clocks that this guy isn't falling for the usual cheap tricks, and honestly, she's impressed by the guts. She dips out, but not before telling Blair they need to have a little private chat later. You can just feel the jealousy radiating off Isabella. She was totally testing him, trying to see if he'd jump at the chance to go with Alice, but Blair just gives her the most confused puppy dog look ever. He's literally asking, why would I go with her? Meanwhile, Isabella's inner monologue is just typical. All guys are the same. See a pretty girl? Activate simp mode. Not wanting to drag this awkwardness out, Blair just blurts out that Alice isn't even in the same league as Isabella. This completely short-circuits Isabella's brain, and she's like, wait, are you for real? And our boy, with a face as straight as a board, just goes, yeah. I genuinely think you're way more beautiful. Our hero is internally sighing with relief, thinking he just dodged a major social bullet, while Isabella is turning about 50 shades of red. Then, out of the blue, some dude in a crisp white suit rolls up. Surprise, it's President Calvin himself. The crew's like, what are you doing here? And he lays it on thick, saying they're the main event and he just had to come over and give his props. Blair, completely oblivious to the massive wave he just made, just humbly says he kinda helped solve the problem and, mention that number. Calvin's like, hold up, that problem and that number were a huge deal. The Howard family basically built their entire brand on that 7 bridges riddle. Except, whoops, today it was proven the whole thing was a sham with no solution. Because of that, the family's rep just got flushed down the toilet, and that number Blair dropped could literally detonate the entire world of mathematics. So, the president is basically dying to know, who is this guy? He's wondering where this prodigy just materialized from and what the real endgame is for the kid who just casually upended everything with one simple explanation. Blair, naturally, decides to play dumb. He's like, hey, everyone saw Fizzy ask me for help. He just had a random brain blast and said it out loud. And as for the number, pure, innocent curiosity, obviously. He even throws in that the Vic Count would have totally figured it out eventually with his little math club's help. Calvin decides not to push it, admitting maybe he was getting a little too extra. But he gives Blair a friendly warning to watch his back with the Howard family, because starting beef with them is a one-way ticket to a bad time. Meanwhile, across town, Papa Howard is in his office with his son, who's currently being used as a floor decoration. The kid got the beatdown of a lifetime for embarrassing the family, and his face looks like a Jackson Pollock painting. Standing next to the big boss is some shady figure who suggests it's time to handle things. The Viscount is just waiting for Blair to step outside the mansion so he can be taken care of in a way that looks like a tragic, clumsy accident. The shadowy figure gets the memo and gives a little nod. But suddenly, the Viscount hears a voice from behind, musing, planning to unalive. Someone again? Are we? He whips around to see a dude with stark white hair, rocking a matching all-white suit. Talk about a dramatic entrance. Father's face twists into a nasty scowl. He did not appreciate the tone of this guy, named Abel, and the figure in black is absolutely shook, because she personally sent this man on a one-way trip to the great beyond. The man just smirks, saying it's totally normal for them to be shocked, seeing as the Viscount himself was the one who ordered the hit on him last time. In total disbelief, the father practically launches out of his chair, screaming about how the hell he isn't pushing up daisies and demanding to know if that Blair kid is one of his lackeys. Wanting to end this soap opera right now, the old man whips out a heater from thin air. He points the piece right at Abel and tells him to start spilling the tea, immediately. At this point, his blonde, floor-bound brother is finally processing the absolute chaos unfolding. Abel, still in his pristine white suit, just sighs that his father is asking like a zillion questions and he's not even sure where to start this epic saga. But after a dramatic pause, he's like, all right, fine, I'll give you the Cliff's Notes version. He clarifies that Blair is a total rando to him, but that he, Abel, had a pretty legendary reason to come back from the dead. Cool as a cucumber, with a gun in his face, he announces he's here to give the Howard family a complete and total makeover. The head of the family just stares at him like he's grown a second head, asking how he plans to pull that off. Instead of a straight answer, he just gets a question lobbed right back at him. Abel wants to know what, in his dear old dad's opinion, is the true foundation of their family. The Viscount, without even blinking, replies that their foundation is their reputation, but Abel immediately shoots that idea down. He claims their family was actually built on a mountain of BS. The old man starts getting seriously triggered and demands to know what he's talking about. Abel then drops the ultimate truth bomb. His father always knew the Seven Bridges problem was a total fake with no solution, but to protect the family's precious glory and their street cred in the math world, he chose to sweep it all under the rug. For years, anytime someone got a little too close to the truth, his father would find a way to make them disappear. That even included him. The old man didn't even spare his own flesh and blood. The Viscount tells the boy to zip it, clearly tired of hearing all these inconvenient truths. He's ready to hit the repeat button on the whole killing his son thing, all in the name of family values, of course. But Abel is completely unfazed, telling him it's way too late for that, because you can't keep the truth buried forever. And as of today, that Blair dude has already spilled all the tea to every mathematician in the entire city. His dad might be able to silence a couple of people, but he's not about to succeed in a citywide cleanup spree. Out of nowhere, our white-haired boy casually grabs the gun barrel and just shoves it against his own shoulder. He says that unless his dad plans on taking out every single witness by tomorrow morning, this whole scandal is going to be front-page news across the entire state. Abel then asks if his father seriously thinks he can hold this family together when the whole house of cards collapses. Completely out of moves, the Viscount lets the gun clatter to the floor, and Abel scoops it up. His father, looking like a man who just lost everything, is utterly defeated, asks what he's supposed to do, and his son hits him with the ultimate power move. You take over, you become the new head and fix this family. It's the only shot the Howard name has. He basically tells his dad, you know damn well I'm the only one who can pull this family out of its nosedive. The Viscount, feeling the walls close in, actually starts to consider the proposal. And boom, the message lands. Fast forward a few days, and our boy wakes up, finding himself crashing at his teacher Brittany's place. And he is loathing this setup. We're talking a real bed, people, not some closet that reeks of despair. So, he decides to pop in and say good morning to his gracious host, but he freezes mid-step, jaw on the floor. Because Brittany's room looks like a mad scientist's lair, there are mountains of paper covered in frantic scribbles. And instantly, our boy connects the dots. She's been up all night, obsessively trying to crack the code on that number he dropped at the ball. See, after that whole seminar, news about this supposedly unsolvable problem went viral across the entire kingdom. And just like that, the Howard family's reputation absolutely tanked. And that mystery number, the one no one could figure out, it got a sick new nickname, the Devil's Number. So basically, every math nerd in the country was losing their mind trying to solve it. But no matter how many brain cells they burned, they came up with squat. The thing is, math in this world is still in its baby phase. They haven't even unlocked the physics DLC yet, so their math can't explain, like, basic forces. Physics literally isn't a thing here, but even so, these scientists are treated like rock stars, constantly grinding and pulling all-nighters. Our boy figures it's only a matter of time before someone cracks it. Sure, they'll probably mess up a billion times first, but eventually, the truth always wins. Anyway, while Brittany is still passed out from her math-a-thon, our guy grabs the morning paper to catch up on the news. And the hot goss? The Howard family has a new leader. The word on the street is this new guy is probably going to nuke the entire mathematics society, which, for the Howards, is actually the smartest play. But Blair's thinking, why go nuclear? He's scanning the paper, trying to put a name to this new mystery boss, and that's when Brittany just materializes behind him. She's all sleepy and cute, mumbling a good morning, and our dark-haired hero just about malfunctions. She's got this whole innocent, just woke up vibe that totally catches him off guard. So, he's just frozen, taking in the view, while she just kind of stares back at him in silence, and then the switch flips. Her face goes from sleepy to seriously annoyed. He remembers. She told him to wake her up the second he was conscious. Brittany gives his cheek a little poke, calling him a bad boy, before she starts teasing him about that secret number he's hiding. The only problem? She is invading his personal space bubble, like, way too close for comfort. Our boy's brain goes into full-on panic mode, and suddenly, a classic anime nosebleed erupts while he's turning the color of a tomato. It's only then that Brittany looks down, realizes what she's wearing or not wearing, and the light bulb finally goes off. Oh, that's why. Absolutely mortified, she lets out a shriek that could wake the dead, calling Blair a total creep. So, once the dust settles on that little domestic drama, we find our boy in the kitchen, trying to cook something up while rocking a fresh, five-fingered face tattoo. The girl mumbles an apology, swearing she didn't mean to slap him. Blair's finally connecting the dots. When Brittany wakes up, it's like a whole different person takes over. This makes the blonde super insecure, thinking he won't like this side of her. But our boy, smooth as ever, just shrugs and says he likes her no matter what. She's totally stunned to hear that, and the look on her face says she's loving that answer. She's a blushing mess, while Blair looks pretty darn proud of himself. Then her curiosity gets the best of her, and she asks why he's mixing eggs with what look like red berries. He explains it's a tomato omelet, which apparently blows her mind. Blair has to break it down for her. Where he's from, these red berries are called tomatoes, and yeah, pretty much everyone knows how to cook them with eggs. This sends him on a little trip down memory lane, back to his old life, where this was his go-to comfort food. Anyway, after cooking, he scrambles to get ready and jets off to school, but not before telling her to give his cooking a shot. Suddenly, just as he's about to leave, Brittany stops him dead in his tracks. She pulls out a white cloth and starts dabbing at his hoodie, and our hero is practically melting from the sheer awkwardness of it all. But hey, at least he's a little cleaner now. She basically tells him to get a move on, and Blair, still processing what the heck just happened, awkwardly says his goodbyes. Left all alone, she gives the weird food another look. She cautiously scoops up a tiny spoonful, bringing it to her mouth like she's defusing a bomb. One bite of the omelet and Brittany's world is officially rocked. Seriously, she's never tasted anything this mind-blowing. We're talking full-on, head-to-toe goosebumps. She's lost in the sauce, savoring every last tomato, completely shook by how good this food is. Meanwhile, our boy rolls up to the academy only to realize his stomach is staging a full-on protest. Yep, in his quest to be Brittany's personal five-star chef, he totally forgot to, feed himself. Classic move. Inside Blair's classroom, the gossip mill is churning. The hot topic? The new mystery man heading the Howard family who straight up canceled the math society. They're all buzzing about how this dude is supposedly a total smoke show, cracked the family's biggest code, and then just vanished into thin air. One girl even spills the tea that her uncle from the math club said the guy was their age. The only catch? Mr. Anonymous wanted his identity kept on the down low. The girls are freaking out, like, how could some random teenager just casually break the universe with a number? Blair's half listening when Isabella materializes next to him, demanding answers about the so-called devil's number. But our guy plays dumb, hitting her with the I don't know what you're talking about routine. The blonde is not buying it for a second and calls him on his bluff. Then, out of nowhere, a third-year student waltzes in and tells Isabella to get off Blair's case. And would you look at that, it's Alice. She gives Blair a super cheerful hello, which he returns, while Isabella just glares like she's trying to set her on fire with her mind. The guys in class are just watching this all go down, absolutely seething with jealousy. You can practically see the smoke coming out of one dude's ears as he tries to compute how Blair became such a chick magnet. Alice leans in closer, asking if they were just talking about the devil's number. But instead of an answer, all she gets is a demonic growl that echoes through the room, coming straight from Blair's stomach. The two girls just stare at him, completely baffled, while Blair looks like he wants the floor to swallow him whole. He mumbles a quick apology, but Alice just finds the whole thing hilarious and completely loses it. Isabella, on the other hand, immediately calls him a pig, complaining that it's not even lunchtime. Suddenly, a small bread roll, perfectly wrapped in a napkin, appears right in front of his face. The delivery angel, Alice. She plays it off, saying she accidentally grabbed an extra and needs help eating it. Blair stares at the roll like it's a winning lottery ticket, practically drooling. He thanks her, calling her a literal saint. But Isabella pinches his cheek, yelling at him not to take food from strangers. He tries to explain that he was totally going to refuse, but the roll just smelled way too good to resist. The blonde looks at him, completely fed up, and asks why he didn't just ask her for bread. Blair then serves her a reality check. Maybe because you just called me a pig? Touché. Alice chimes in that it's only natural to help a genius like Blair. Isabella practically turns green hearing that. Flustered, she shoves her own food at our MC, telling him to forget Alice's lame role. And so, the food wars begin. Alice taunts her. You can't decide for him. It's not like you're his girlfriend. Oh, snap. Isabella's patience has officially left the chat, replaced by a death stare of epic proportions. The blonde lays down an ultimatum. Her sandwich or Alice's roll. He can only choose one. The tension is so thick you could cut it with a plastic knife. All our boy wanted was some peace and a snack. He asks Isabella for the sandwich, and she does a full-on victory shimmy, thinking she's won. But then, in a legendary plot twist, he snags the roll with his free hand and shoves both the sandwich and the roll into his mouth at the same time. The entire class is stunned silent. He's got chipmunk cheeks, he's struggling to swallow, he forces it all down, and there are literal tears of effort in his eyes. He manages to choke out that it was delicious and thanks them both. The crowd is just staring, jaws on the floor. Isabella, somehow, still claims victory, bragging that her sandwich was so good he inhaled it. That's when Alice spots it, a tiny crumb from her roll, stuck on his face. She decides to make her move. She gives him a sly look and coos. You've got a little something there. Allow me. She plucks the crumb right off his cheek, licks it off her own finger, and calls him a slob. A total power move. Isabella looks like she's about to have an aneurysm. And right on cue, the bell rings, signaling the start of class. Alice says a breezy goodbye to Blair, telling him to study hard, leaving the blonde absolutely fuming, with a death glare, then summons him to the classroom after the bell. And with a totally dramatic door slam, the third-year girls make their exit. Blair can finally catch a breath. Seriously, this whole new life who dis situation was already a total headache, but then, out of nowhere, his cheek gets assaulted again as someone calls his name. It's Toby, who immediately grills him on where he even found Alice. Blair explains they met a few nights ago, and Toby's reaction is, let's just say, super weird. Our boy lays it all out. Professor Brittany dragged him to some math seminar, and boom, that's where they crossed paths. And that's when it clicks for Toby. That was the same seminar where everyone started buzzing about the so-called devil's number. But his Sherlock moment gets cut short because the teacher rolls in and Blair gets called to the board. Brittany tells the class to partner up and tackle the problem. But while everyone's distracted, the teacher slides up to Blair, gives him a little nudge, and whispers his name. She stealthily passes him a small bread roll, and our guy's reaction is just priceless. She whispers that she clocked him skipping breakfast and brought him a little something. But Blair, who's already stuffed to the gills, stares at the bread with the pure, unadulterated horror of a man on a diet at an all-you-can-eat buffet. He shuffles back to his desk where the groups are forming, and Toby, with his eagle eyes, spots the contraband carb and asks where he got it. Blair, who is not about to unpack that whole awkward situation, just says he'll explain later and that right now, they've got bigger fish to fry. The pink-haired girl randomly jumps into the conversation, asking Blair about the dude from the math seminar. Playing it cool, our boy is like, yeah, I think I saw him there. She's not exactly buying his vague answer, giving him a look that says she can practically smell the BS. He scrambles for an excuse, claiming that right when the mystery man appeared, he had to, dip out for a second to handle some business. By the time he got back, the whole devil's number speech was already ancient history. Toby chimes in, and both of them are absolutely baffled that Blair missed the main event. Our boy defends himself, claiming he ate too much and his stomach was staging a full-on rebellion. His friend, looking a little sus, says Blair really fumbled the bag by missing out. But the pink-haired girl actually comes to our protagonist's defense. She points out that just getting to go to a thing like that is a huge win. Then she remembers he's a math whiz and shoots her shot, asking him to make time for a little study session. Toby, ever the wingman, teases her, implying her study request wasn't just about the algebra, if you catch my drift. Meanwhile, the other girl in their group looks like she is so over this entire conversation. After what feels like an eternity, the bell finally rings, signaling the end of class. Our hero is completely drained from spending the whole period playing a high-stakes game of hide-and-seek with Isabella. All he wants is a quiet corner to finally level up his wizard skills, because you gotta stay sharp. Then, out of the blue, a voice from nearby cuts through the silence, asking since when was he so into magic. He looks up to see a shadowy figure, totally impossible to identify. Suddenly, something cold and very, very sharp kisses his neck, and our boy is about 2 seconds from needing a new pair of pants. Blair stares, wide-eyed, at his attacker, but their face is a complete blur. The dark figure is, plot twist, a blue-haired girl. It's his own classmate, who tells him not to even think about moving, warning him the dagger is razor-sharp. He immediately recognizes her as his friend Molly, and his brain just blue screens from the confusion. She's accusing him of being the genius who cracked the riddle at the seminar and dropped the knowledge about the devil's number. According to her, the Blair she knew couldn't solve a Rubik's Cube, let alone a riddle like that, and she demands to know why he's running a scam on her friend's identity. Our boy, trying to play it cool,